2017 meeting of the Virginia Beach Planning Commission. We welcome you. My name is Bob Thornton, and I'm the chairman of the commission. Before we get started, I've asked Ed Whedon to lead us in prayer and be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Karen Kwasny. Please stand.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Heavenly Father, we give you praise, honor, and glory today, Lord God. We just thank you, Lord, for waking us up, Lord, starting us upon our way this morning with the use of our limbs. We ask you, Lord, to heal each person in this place today, Lord God, physically, mentally, and spiritually. We ask you to come into this place, Lord God, and touch everyone from the top of their head to the crown of their head to the soles of their feet, Father God. We ask you just to make sure this meeting goes well, Lord God, and to give you all the praise, honor, and glory. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you, Karen. I've asked Commissioner Jeff Hodson to please introduce the members of the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Thornton. To my right, at the far end, is Kay Wilson. She is our city attorney. Next, you have Jack Wall. Jack Wall is a civil engineer, and he represents the Rose Hall District. To Jack's left, you have Dr. Kwasny. She represents Princess Anne, and she is a professor, I can't even say it, of literature and cultural studies. Next, you have Don Horsley. He's an at-large member, and he is a farmer. Next to Don is Ron Ripley. Ron is also an at-large member, and Ron is in real estate management and development. Next is Jan Rosinski. Jan is the secretary of the commission, and she is a property manager for Long and Foss Realty, and she represents the Centerville district. Next is our chairman, Mr. Bob Thornton. Bob is into commercial leasing and development. He represents the Lynn Haven district. Next is Dee Oliver. Dee is a funeral director. She's an at-large member, and she is the vice chair of the commission. My name is Jeff Hodson. I represent the Beach District, and I am in real estate management and development. To my left is Mr. Mike Inman. Mike is, you're at large, correct? Yes, Mike's at large, and Mike is an attorney. Next, you have David Weiner. David's in commercial sales, and he represents the Kempsville district. To David's left is Dave Redmond. Dave Redmond represents Bayside, and he is in commercial real estate sales. Next is our acting planning director, Carolyn Frankenfield. Carolyn Smith, and would you please introduce your staff?
Certainly, thank you. We have Ed Whedon to my left. He is my wingman, and he will help us with the minutes of today's meeting, and he also lives by the motto that life is too short to wear boring clothes. So, we have several folks that have helped with the preparation of today's agenda. We have Jimmy McNamara on the front row here, Marshall Coleman, Stephen White, our zoning administrator, Kevin Kemp, and then behind him, Jonathan Sanders, Robert Davis, and then we have Tobias Eisenlohr with the city attorney's office.
Thank you. Thank you for those nice introductions. The next order of business is for those items to be withdrawn or deferred. Are there any items that, say again?
the rules.
Oh, pardon me, I jumped ahead. The next item is we're going to talk about the rules that we use to run the meeting, and Commissioner Rosinski is going to review those with you. Thank
See,
you.
we all work together to keep each other on track. So, thank you, Chairman Thornton, I appreciate that. The Virginia Beach Planning Commission takes pride in being fair and courteous to all parties in attendance. It is important that all involved understand how the commission normally conducts its meetings. It's equally important that everyone treat each other and members of this commission with respect and civility. The commission requests that if you have a cell phone to please silence it or turn it off at this time. This is an abbreviated explanation of the rules. The complete set of rules is found in the front of the Planning Commission agenda. Following is the order of business for this public hearing. Withdrawals and deferrals. The chairman will ask if there's a request for withdrawal or deferral on any item on the agenda. Consideration of these will be made first. Consent agenda. The second order of business is the consideration of the consent agenda, which are those items that the Planning Commission believes are unopposed and have favorable staff recommendation. Regular agenda. The commission will then proceed with the remaining items on the agenda. Please note that action taken today by the commission is in the form of a recommendation to the Virginia Beach City Council. The final decision for approval or denial of an application is made by City Council. The commission thanks you for your attendance, and we hope that your experience here today leaves you feeling that you have been heard and treated fairly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now, according to Jan, the next order of business is those items that need to be either withdrawn or deferred. Are there any cases today? I don't think we have any, so this is merely procedural. So that's the next order of business. The next item is, I'm going to turn it over to the vice chair to handle, are the consent agenda items.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This afternoon, we have 10 items on the consent agenda. The first matter is agenda item number 1. This is an application of Ishwar LLC as an applicant and the owner. It's a conditional use permit for a motor vehicle rental on property located at 5924 Indian River Road, District 1, Centerville. Is there a representative for this application? Come on, would you please come forward and state your name for the record, please? Hi.
My name is Vikash Chaudhary. Vikash Chaudhary.
Great, thank you. And are the conditions in the application acceptable to you?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
You can take your seat.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any opposition to this matter being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chairman has asked Commissioner Runinski to read this into the record, please.
Thank you, Ms. Oliver. This is a conditional use permit for an automotive service station and car wash that was approved back in 1988 for the site. Since that time, the site has been developed with a fuel canopy, pumps, convenience store, and a car wash. This request today is for a conditional use permit to add motor vehicle rentals to the site. Specifically, the applicant proposes to offer box trucks for rent. The trucks will be parked within the parking lot on the west side of the convenience store. Customers will rent the vehicle from space when in the convenience store, and the hours of operation proposed are 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week. This request for a conditional use permit for the motor vehicle rentals in order to offer up the box trucks is acceptable for the site. In staff's opinion, it's compatible with the surrounding commercial uses. It's consistent with the comprehensive planned land use policies for the suburban area. The number of parking spaces on the site exceeds the minimum parking required by 3. Therefore, the display of the 4 vehicles for rent will not impact the ability for either customers or employees to park. For these reasons, staff recommends approval of this applicant. The applicant is agreeable to all the conditions, and therefore we have placed it on the consent agenda.
Thank you. The next matter is agenda item number 3. This is an application for IPA Enterprises LLC for conditional use permit, home occupation retail sales, firearms on property located at 929 Boughton Way in the District 3 Rose Hall. Is there a representative for this application?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Would you please state your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Eugenio Jimenez.
Great, thank you. And are the conditions acceptable to you?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there any opposition to this application being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chairman has asked Commissioner Wall to read this in. To the record, please.
Thank you. The applicant desires to provide operational logistical equipment to government agencies. According to the applicant, business will be completed through government contracts with government entities. As part of their operation, the applicant is required to obtain a federal firearms license in order to complete firearms transfer transactions. The majority of the firearms will not be stored at the site, but rather will be transferred directly to the buyer. Buyer's respective license, there'll be a licensed dealer of their choice transferred directly to the buyer through drop shipping. These sales will be conducted exclusively via the internet. A small portion of the overall business will include sales of firearms to local buyers with the option to conduct the transfer at the subject site. Firearms will not be available for general retail sales to the public. All transactions will be by appointment only. All federally controlled items will be stored in secured steel vaults and will be required to be secured in accordance with ATF regulations. No sign to advertise the business is proposed or will be permitted. Due to the low impact to the suburban area, staff's recommendation of approval and that the applicant is agreeable to the conditions, we have placed this item on the consent agenda.
Thank you. The next matter is agenda item number 4. This is an application of New Millennium Senior Living Communities, LLC, for a modification of condition housing for seniors and disabled persons on the property located at 4225 and 4141 Shore Drive, District 4, Bayside. Hello.
Thank you. Ms. Oliver, thank you. Members of the commission, for the record, my name is R.J. Nutter. I'm an attorney representing New Millennium. I want to thank you for being placed on the consent agenda and thank Mr. McNamara for all of his hard work on this application, and actually to Commissioner Redmond as well, who took time to come out and visit this facility and make sure everything was okay. So we appreciate his effort there, and thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Is there any opposition to this being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chairman has asked Commissioner Redmond to read this in to the record, please.
This is an application of New Millennium Senior Living Communities, LLC, for a modification of conditions specifically for housing for seniors and disabled persons on property located at 4225 and 4141 Shore Drive. This parcel is well familiar to anyone who lives in that neck of the woods. It's at the corner of Shore Drive and Pleasure House Road. This parcel is approximately 11.5 acres, consists actually of 2 parcels on 11.5 acres. Conditional use permit for housing for seniors and disabled persons on the western 5 acres was granted by the City Council in July 1996. Since that time, the site has been developed with a 72-unit, 2-story assisted living facility, and I'd like to thank the applicant and Mr. Nutter for having me out to their facility to tour it and explain this application. I appreciated that. The eastern 6.5 acre parcel is currently vacant. The applicant is now requesting a modification of the original conditional use permit to include the vacant eastern parcel in order to develop that site with additional housing for seniors. The proposal includes a 3-phase development plan that will add a total of 204 units to the site. First phase is proposed to include 130 independent living units. Phase 2 will consist of an additional 50 independent living units, and the final phase will add 24 assisted living units. The applicant and his representative shared this plan with a number of the local community organizations, civic leagues, the Bayfront Advisory Commission. All were supportive of it. This is a critical need in our community and communities, across planet Earth. The architecture is fine. The landscaping is excellent. It's a well-conceived plan. The staff supports it. The commission concurs by consent. Thank you.
Thank you. The next matter is on the agenda is item number 5. This is an application of Myrna Holdings, LLC, for conditional rezoning, R7.5 residential to conditional O1 office on the property located at 656 Alberthaz Drive, District 5, Lynn Haven. Hello, how are you?
Good afternoon. I'm John Myrna, and I'm submitting this application. I would also like to thank Carolyn and Mr. Sanders for the exceptional work they've done with me in guiding me through my first time to attempt something like this. They are a credit to the city.
Great, thank you. And are the conditions acceptable to you?
They are.
Perfect, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Is there any opposition to this being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chairman has asked Commissioner Weiner to read this into the record.
Thank you, Mrs. Oliver. This is a conditional rezoning, R7.5 residential to conditional O1 office. The 0.78 acre site is currently developed with a 2-story single-family home. The applicant desires to acquire the property to convert the dwelling into an office for his law firm. Based on the existing residential zoning, the proposed office use, and the size of the lot, a rezoning to O1 Office District is requested. The site's surrounding by a unique mix of uses that include a dance studio to the north, Kings Grant Elementary School to the east, and an office building to the south. The submitted site layout depicts an addition of a parking lot in the front of the structure with the required streetscape planning along North Lynn Road. The comprehensive plan identifies this as being located in the suburban area. The plan, staff has recommended approval, and we put it on the consent agenda.
Thank you. The next matter is agenda item number 6. This is an application of Edric Corey Kaysen for a change of zoning, an Ag 2 agricultural to an R10 residential on property located on Seaboard Road, District 7, Princess Anne. Hello.
Good
how are you?
afternoon. Doing well.
Good.
My name is Edric Corey Kaysen, and I am representing the applicant, Valerie Kaysen, the owner, Valerie Kaysen.
Great, thank you. And are the conditions acceptable to you?
Yes, they are.
Perfect, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there any opposition to this being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chairman has asked Commissioner Kwanzi to read this into the record.
Thank you, Vice Chair Oliver. This is a request for a rezoning in the Princess Anne District on the west side of Seaboard Road. Existing land use is undeveloped wooded site, zoned agricultural. The applicant requests a rezoning of a .99 acre parcel from Ag 2 to residential R10. Under residential R10, based on the configuration of the existing parcel, the available frontage on Seaboard Road, the site could be subdivided into 2 single-family lots. These 2 single-family lots will result in lots that are similar in configuration to lots that are adjacent to the parcel across the street to the north. This particular application is an effort to simplify to a rezoning what would be otherwise a complicated and expensive process with the pretty much the same result. The site area is located within the suburban area of the comprehensive plan. Staff finds the application amenable, and the Planning Commission places it on the consent agenda.
Thank you. The next matter is agenda item number 7. This is an application for Sacred Daggers, Inc., for a conditional use permit tattoo parlor on property located at 3972 Holland Road, District 3, Rose Hall. Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you? My name is
Good.
Michael Vasquez, and I'm the one representing Sacred Daggers.
Great, thank you. And are the conditions acceptable to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Is there any opposition to this being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chairman has asked Commissioner Inman to read this into the record.
Thank you. This is a conditional use permit application for a tattoo parlor at 3972 Holland Road. It's in a B2 community business district and is situated in a shopping center that has a number of and variety of businesses there. And they propose to occupy 33,000 square feet and employ 10 people approximately. The hours of operation are proposed to be 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily. This request, in staff's opinion, is compatible with the surrounding commercial uses, and that's our observation also earlier today. And it does require a business license, of course, and also health department must verify that the business meets all the requirements of the city code. There are several conditions to which the applicant has agreed, and for that reason, we put it on the consent agenda.
Great, thank you very much. The next matter on the agenda is item number 8. This is an ordinance to amend section 201 of the city zoning ordinance pertaining to fences or walls and setbacks, fences adjacent to sound walls, and replacement of non-conforming fences. And our zoning administrator, Kevin Kemp, is going to read this and explain it to us.
Thank you, Commissioner Oliver. This ordinance really is brought to you with the intent to give the homeowner more flexibility in how much of their yard they can enclose with a privacy fence, specifically when it's on a corner lot. I will go through these changes here on the screen. Our current ordinance, a fence over 4 feet in height is not allowed to encroach into that side corner setback, so they are limited in how much they can fence. We did amend the ordinance several years ago where if the house was non-conforming and located in the setback, you could come directly off the corner of the house. What this ordinance aims to do is provide more flexibility. So with this ordinance, the property owner would be able to come within 10 feet of that side corner setback adjacent to the street with a privacy fence. And it also has a stipulation that if it is at that 10-foot mark, Category 1 landscaping will be planted along. The second part of this ordinance revision is in regards to sound wall. This is something, as these road projects get done, these large sound barriers get placed up, and our fence ordinance doesn't address this in the most efficient manner. So currently in our ordinance, if there is a sound wall as pictured right here, the property owner with a privacy fence would still have to be 10 feet from their property line. So that would leave this gap of area between the sound wall and their fence. They could go up to 5 feet with Category 1 landscaping, but then again, they're planning landscaping between a sound barrier and their privacy fence. So what this ordinance does is it gives two options. The first is if they want to enclose their whole yard with a privacy fence, they can. And secondly, if they want to connect up to that sound barrier, as long as they get permission from Public Works for that encroachment, they can take their privacy fence directly up to the sound barrier. We feel this is a good amendment, and staff supports it.
Thank you. The next matter on the agenda is item number 9. This is an ordinance to amend Section 1005 of the city zoning ordinance pertaining to signs in the industrial zoning district, and our zoning administrator is going to explain that to us also.
Thank you, Commissioner Oliver. This ordinance was sparked when we realized that something was omitted when the sign ordinance was redone last year, and that was that certain properties in the industrial district were limited to only 12 square feet of signage. What we did is we changed that to the correct number, which is 40 square feet. But while we did that, we took the opportunity to reword the sign ordinance, not changing the requirements, but making it more readable for the average person. Our previous ordinance got a little convoluted. This one makes it easier. We have done it with the industrial signage, and we plan to move forward with the other zoning districts to get a consistent format for our sign ordinance.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next matter is agenda item number 10. And this is an application of Outdoor Resorts of Virginia Beach Condominium Association as applicant and owner for a modification of conditions of a use permit approved on August 4th, 2015, recreational resort community on property located at 3665 South Sandpiper Road, District 7, Princess Anne. Hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm Ken Kroll, and I'm representing Outdoor Resorts Condominium Association.
Great, thank you. And are the conditions acceptable to you?
Yes, they are.
Perfect, thank you very much. Is there any opposition to this matter being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, Chairman has asked Commissioner Kwanzi to read this in to the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair Oliver. This is a request for a modification of conditions in the Princess Anne District. The existing land use and zoning district is recreational resort community, agricultural district, and residential R15 district. The conditional use permit of 2015 had 5 conditions. Condition 2 stated that the residential units could consist of recreational vehicles and park model trailers with a maximum length of 40 feet. However, the bylaws for the outdoor resort provide for a maximum length of 45 feet, and in fact, a number of units of that size currently exist on the property. Condition 2 of the 2015 use permit needs to be modified. That is the request we are reviewing today, such that the stated maximum length of 45 feet is listed in the condition. The site area is located in the Suburban Focus Area 6, Sandbridge. Staff recommends approval of this application, and the Planning Commission places it on the consent agenda.
Thank you. The next matter is agenda item number D1. This is an application of Ocean Bay Homes, Inc. for a subdivision variance section 4.4B of the subdivision regulations on property located at 2422 Baltic Avenue, District 6 Beach. Hello.
Good afternoon. Ms. Oliver, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, for the record, Eddie Burdon, Virginia Beach Attorney representing Ocean Bay Homes. Appreciate Carolyn's work on this and most especially Jonathan's. Want to just mention one thing that came up this morning. This property has 3 units on it today. There is not the first on-site parking space on this property. There will be 2 public parking spaces on 25th Street that will be displaced by the 3 driveways that will provide the 6 on-site parking spaces for the redeveloped property. And the amount of impervious surface on the site is only going to increase by 200 square feet, 1 parking space over what's there today. All the conditions are acceptable and appreciate being on the consent agenda.
Great.
So, Mr. Brown, could I ask a favor that you contact the property owner to the south and just let them know of your applicant's intent to put that extra little buffer of plantings?
Right, and just to be clear, we've shown a vegetated buffer on our plan between us and the property, but we intended to have a fence on our property behind it. If they would prefer, we can push the landscaping to the back of the fence if that's what they prefer. But we are showing a hedgerow on the entire property line that we share with the people behind. We will be in touch with them.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Is there any opposition to this being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chairman has asked Commissioner Hodson to read this into the record.
Thank you, Ms. Oliver. The subject site is made up of 2 legally non-conforming lots on the southwest corner of Baltic Avenue and 25th Street. There is an existing single-family home and 2 other brick buildings that serve as dwelling units on the lots. In the A12 apartment district, duplex dwellings are a permitted use. Provisions in the Old Beach Overlay District permit an option to construct 2 single-family homes, a principal and an ancillary dwelling, on property zoned A12. Based on this, these 2 lots could yield up to 4 dwellings. The applicant desires to re-subdivide the 2 lots into 3 lots in order to construct 3 single-family dwellings, 1 on each lot. The zoning ordinance requires that lots in the Old Beach Overlay District have a 40-foot lot width plus an additional 10-foot for corner lots, and the minimum lot area is 5,000 square feet. As the lots are deficient in a lot area by 2,200 square feet, and the corner lot will also be deficient in lot width by 10 feet, subdivision variances are requested for both lot area and lot width. Staff met with the applicant to discuss options to accomplish their goals while meeting the design guidelines. Staff requested that the number of Board of Zoning Appeals variances necessary to implement the concept be reduced significantly. The applicant was able to redesign the structures and tweak the layout to accomplish this. Based on this, the proposal is now more in line with the Old Beach Design Guidelines and the Old Beach Overlay Ordinance. The Planning Department recommended approval or what's the word I'm looking for? The consent, and we added it to our consent agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, that was the last item on the consent agenda today, and I would like to move that we approve consent agenda items number 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
D2.
Got pulled.
Got pulled.
8, 9, 10, D1 be approved.
I have a motion made by Vice Chairman Oliver to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a second, please? Yes.
I have to abstain on item number 10, outdoor resorts, they're a client of mine.
Okay. 1 abstention by Mr. Inman. Any second by Mr. Horsley.
I noticed in item number D2, they are using D1. They're using Town Bank as a lender. I serve on the Town Bank board, but I've been advised that since we don't only advise, we're not making the final decision that it's appropriate. And I have no financial interest in this at all.
So you're not recusing yourself?
I'm not.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. You got that, Ed? Call for the vote, please.
Vote is open. By a vote of 11-0, the commission has approved items 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and D1 with the abstention so noted on item 10.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all the applicants who had a matter on the consent agenda for attending today's hearing. These items will be placed on the City Council agenda in the future. Now we'd like to address the remaining matters on our agenda, and I'll ask the Secretary to call the first item.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is item number 2, Normita Platten and Randy Platten, an application for a conditional use permit group home on property located at 1319 Hillock Crossing, District 2, Kempsville. Will the applicant please come forward? Hi, and if you will state your name for the record and give us a brief overview of your application.
Okay, what we're planning to do is to convert from adult foster care to a residential level of care. I'm sorry. What we're planning to do is to convert from adult foster care to a residential level of care facility where we can have more than, because right now we're doing 3 people, elderly at home, and we're hoping to do more than that. The number of people will depend on the building official as well as the Department of Social Service.
Okay. And I see that you're, the first speaker. Mr. Patton, do you have anything that you'd like to add to that?
No, not at this time.
Okay. All right, we do have a couple speakers in opposition, so we'll need to hear them and, at this time, okay? The first speaker in opposition is
Can I ask them a question?
Sure.
Could I ask you a quick question? I noticed that you were looking for 10, to serve 10 people, and the staff has recommended 8. Is that a problem?
No, sir.
All right, thank you.
Or, hold on, are there other, yes, Dave Redmond, please.
Can you tell us a little bit about about your residents and any particular limitations they might have that either require them or might want them to live in a group home environment? Are they disabled in any way? Or what are some of the limitations that you find that would cause them to seek a group home environment?
What's that?
Okay, he's asking about explaining about what we feel that people would want to be a group home. You need to explain what we're really about.
Oh, because of,
Speak into the mic.
we decided to do this because of when the social service certified me for doing it, and they asked me if I know other people. So I've seen the level of demands on the people that wanted to be in a small facility rather than a bigger facility, especially the ones that only requires medication assistance, like preparation of meals and things like that. And we also have families that inquire from us if we have availability. That's just the only way. We don't have, because right now we're only allowed, certified to do 3 people at home. And in order to do more than 3, I need to be certified by the city as well as the social service.
I have another question, but before I ask it, could I ask you to speak an awful lot louder? We're having a very hard time hearing you.
I thought I'm
The residents that you have now, what approximately are their ages, or an average age? How old are they? I know the application is 55 and over. I assume that's defined by statute, but what's the age of your residents, and what would you anticipate being the age of the residents if you got up to 8?
Well, we're looking at 55 and older.
Right.
And because right now we're taking care of 3 gentlemen that are 50, they're like over 50, well, they're 56 and above. Yeah.
As well as 180.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Dave?
For the record, I know you want to at least have 8 people, and we rode by your house and we looked at it. Explain what you plan on doing and how you plan on going about doing that, and what's going to happen? Are there going to be more people in one bedroom? There are only going to be 3 people on site. Go into detail a little bit and tell us what's going to happen.
Yeah, we've currently got a building permit, which we are adding 3 bedrooms to the upstairs floor. And then we're going to make a master bedroom and additional bedroom for my daughter out back. Everything, even with the permission of having more people in the house, we still have to have social service come out and certify each room based on the room size and the specs of how many people can be in per room, which is usually the max of 2. But again, social service will have to come out and determine the condition of the house and certify, as well as we need to get the number of occupancy approval from the permit office for the house when we're done as well.
Is there a lower number than 8 that you could go with to make this feasible?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
It doesn't have to be 8, we go down to 6 or something like that even?
No, yeah.
Okay, just a thought.
Dee?
How many years have you been doing this so far?
4 years.
4 years.
Over
Yes.
4 years.
And do you specialize in any particular type of care?
I'm only certified to do the 180L, which is one activity of daily living. I'm certified for to distribute their medicines for medication. I have certification as well as far as food service management and what is the other one?
Well, I guess my question is, do you have a particular clientele that you particularly have, or is it just all different kinds of people with different kinds of needs?
We can only have people at home that are still functional. That we cannot have anybody that like in a wheelchair and stuff like that. They have to be an ambulatory type of people.
And do you have anybody else helping the two of you?
My daughter is my assistant. She's a certified backup provider for me as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, Jack, and then
Can
Jan.
you tell us a little bit about the transportation, like how they, get to, obviously they're on site, but, if they're going out, what is their transportation? How is that met? How are their transportation needs typically met?
Once we turn around and we expand, some of the transportation will be provided by us. Otherwise, the handy ride already comes in the area and picks up other people in the neighborhood. So we'll be using the handy ride service as well as the social service when they come out and see their clients. They'll also be taking and transporting them to, the facilities or places that they need as well.
Because that's why right now what we discussed together is what we're going to do is a 50% private and a 50% auxiliary grant, which the client is on auxiliary grant. They can use the handy ride. They have an access for the handy ride. For the private pay, well, that we will have to personally transport them to their appointments and other stuff.
So they typically won't have their own vehicles? Okay.
That's correct. They will not have their own vehicles. The guys that we currently have, none of them drive or anything else like that.
Thanks.
Jan?
So if I see that you're planning to convert this home basically to an 8-bedroom home. If there are less occupants that are approved for this, are you still planning to go with that many bedroom addition?
Yeah, because even though we're applying for the conditional permit, I've got the main permit to do my addition, and I've already started breaking ground in the backyard, and I'm still planning on upgrading the house and making it still an 8-bedroom house.
And then my second question is there, other than the bedroom, is there a room that's set aside for them for recreational use or, visitors, or is everything that they have to do in their each individual bedroom?
Yes, there will be. Yeah.
We have a living room where they'll be able to watch TV as well as play games. Also, when they first come in the house, we have we call it formal living room. That's where the family members or people want to come in and entertain their family that comes visit. They can sit in there, as well as we got a dining room space and all that. So there is places for them to come in and meet.
We also mentioned to the family that we have a deck with gazebo if they want more privacy and it's a well-lit, well-ventilated gazebo and a deck with the sitting area at the back of the house.
Dee?
And it might be in the application, I'm not recalling it. Are there visiting hours? Or can the family members come at any time?
Yes, we have visiting hours from 7 till 9 p.m.
Is that 7 days a week?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
What is the average length of stay for your average tenant? When they move in, how long do you expect them to be there?
It varies because there are like in the past, we have clients that came to us in a great condition, except that they just have a little confusion on their medication and stuff. The family cannot do that, so they brought their family member to us. But later on, as their medication progresses, sometimes they ended up with a serious side effects, and when that happens, we have no choice but to talk to the family and the social services. This is what happens because of the side effect of the medications and stuff. And then they go to the doctor. And at that point, because I am not certified to do more than what I should be doing, then the social service will have to transfer them to a nursing home or an assisted living facility, more likely the nursing home.
And one of the things is like right now, we've been doing this going 4 years, going on 5. We've got one gentleman that has been with us that full-time. And we've had, and right now we've got 2 other people since we fall under the AFC, Adult Foster Care Program under social service. The 2 guys are more or less new within the year or so. And we've had somebody that's been with us for 2 years or more, but again, he had medical issues and all that. And again, since social service monitors us and is involved in monitoring us all the time, they turned around and they moved him to another place or facility at that time that needs a higher level of care, which we don't provide.
So your point of contact with the outside world is mainly the Virginia Beach Social Services.
Yes.
They come to you with somebody they need to place in an adult foster care. And then if you have a room and you're qualified, then you can take that person in.
Yes, sir. Social service will first do a full background check on them, or as we move into more or less almost like expanding our business, more or less, as you call it, we will also be doing background checks on people prior to them coming into the home. One, for the safety of our community, but especially for our family, because I still have a 14-year-old daughter that lives with us. And so, again, the safety and security of the family. And then social service will come in and still monitor, as well as the placement into our home is also by a certified doctor that will determine their medication needs and other services that these people need to make sure they qualify for our type of living in the community or in our house.
Dee again?
How many children do you have of your own that live there?
Right now, my 14-year-old and also my older daughter moved back in with us for the short period of time.
And the older one is the one that helps you all?
Yes, ma'am. Yep, the 28-year-old.
Okay. Make sure it wasn't the 14.
No, she's 28.
Yeah, and then the 14-year-old is my youngest.
Okay.
Any further questions of Karen?
So you mentioned that there's oversight and a good deal of review at the point of intake. And I also think I heard you say that there is some review process that goes on with some of your clientele in relation to, progressing with their medication, or if the diagnosis needs to be, revised in order to be, what's the word I'm looking for? That their situation has exacerbated in some way, and then they might be removed from your facility. So that's a constant review process. How often does that occur? So that someone who might be on Because I was looking at the list of exclusions, and it says, for instance, psychotropic medications without appropriate diagnosis or treatment plan. So if a treatment plan was provided and you had a patient there on a psychotropic medication, that treatment plan is overseen by a doctor on a regular basis, so you're reviewed as to whether or not the patient's situation is exacerbated and might need to be removed. How frequently? Is it a matter of their doctor, their visits to their doctor,
well-
or someone come in and?
Yeah.
Every month, for most of our clients, except for one, it's normally every month that the doctors see them.
Okay, but there isn't anyone that comes into your facility to review the patients under your care there after the point of intake, is there?
No.
I don't
No,
know
not
if
a
that would be
doctor coming out
appropriate
to
or
the
not,
house.
I'm just.
Yeah,
okay.
not a doctor coming out
Okay.
to the house.
So
It'll
it's
be
you,
us.
them visiting their own doctor who would make the determination that the care needs to be escalated in some way?
Yes, they go see their doctor. The social worker would pick them up and bring them to their doctor's appointments, stuff like that, yeah.
And the other thing is, we keep a daily log of activities and medication, as well as things we observe for each client. So if we're starting noticing something out of abnormal behavior, maybe they're not showering weekly, or other things, because then when social service reads it, looks through it, they can determine and look at it going, oh, maybe this person's starting to go into some depression or other things. And that way, social service will then notify the doctor or make the calls right away. But we got to keep the log, and they review them quite constantly every time they come to the house.
Other questions? Thank you.
Okay, our first speaker in opposition is Elaine Morgan. And if you can please state your name for the record.
My name's Elaine Morgan.
And
I wrote a letter already, but I wanted to highlight some of the issues that I brought out in the letter that also go along with all the questions that you all have already asked. My husband and I have lived at 1322 Hillock Crossing for 30 years. We enjoy being in a residential neighborhood, and we feel that if there's a group home across the street, that it will become a business across the street and not a residential neighborhood. We don't want to live across the street from a business. And having employees that will have to come and go from the property will lead to problems, one of which is parking that you've already talked about. The Plattons already have 3 vehicles of their own, typically 2 in the driveway and at least 1 parked on the street. They submitted some plans for additions to their house, but that did not include parking. Numerous cars in the yard, if the yard turns into a parking lot, will be an eyesore and not what you expect in a residential neighborhood. That might be what a business looks like, but not what a residential neighborhood looks like. They've already converted their garage into a bedroom for their adult daughter and her 2 children, so they have 2 grandchildren in the house, so no one parks in the garage. And with 3 adult clients in the group home, the clients can have visitors that come and go, and that can cause more issues. So when that number goes beyond 3, that becomes more of a concern. Just this past Saturday morning, there were 3 police vehicles in front of our house and an ambulance. So that might happen once every 2 months if you have 3 adults with problems that you're taking care of. But if you go up to 4, 6, 10 adults that you're taking care of, then that kind of activity with needing emergency support vehicles will increase, no doubt. And the Plattons already have the 3 foster adults that they talked to you about, and 2 of them sort of hang out on the front porch all the time, and they're pleasant and have not caused any problems. But that doesn't mean that future clients would not cause any problems. And beyond having 2, 3 people on the front porch, often it starts to look like a hangout and not a neighborhood residential area. The people who qualify to live in a group home include those with behavioral and mental illness, which was touched on before. And I've been an RN for 40 years, and I have concerns about medication administration. I have not recently looked at state law, but it used to be that you had to be an LPN to administer medications to that many people. So I have great concerns about Mr. Smith getting Mr. Jones's meds, and then that causing a medical problem for the person when you're trying to take care of that many people in the home. A significant concern for us too is our property value. When we go to sell our house at some time in the future, we're concerned that other buyers might not want to consider our home because it's across the street from a group home. And they may have incorrect or correct concerns about the type of clients that live there, and they have choices in the market, and they might choose to live somewhere else, and we might have to take a much lower price for our house when we do decide to sell it.
Ma'am, we have a time limit on speaker. Can you
Okay.
wind up just in a
Sure.
second and wind us up?
Okay. There are other neighbors here that did not sign up to speak, but they are here in support, Felicia Williams and Pat and Sam Rudolph. One other concern is that you may have reviewed issues in letters that were written for supporting the group home without the person writing the letter really understanding what they were writing, because I know that one of our neighbors, Glenn Grandstaff, wrote a letter in support, handwritten, because he thought he was writing in support of what the Plattons are already doing. The Plattons are great, wonderful people, and I applaud them for wanting to take care of elderly people. My husband and I took care of my mother in our house for 6 years and his mother for a little while. Having one or two people that you're taking care of is wonderful and needed in the community to take care of our elderly. But I'm very concerned about the conditions that will occur with the number of people that will be living there.
Are there any questions? Others? Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Roger Morgan.
Hi, I'm Roger Morgan. I'm the husband of this beautiful young lady. I don't have more information than what she said, but I do want to say a couple things. First of all, our opposition to this is not based at all on the Plattons. They've been good neighbors, and I want to make sure you understood that. We're happy to have you as neighbors and friends, and that's not an issue. The issue is we simply don't want a group home across the street from us. As you might imagine, there's a lot of people coming and going, and it is a business, and I think there's at least on some level an implied covenant that the city has when it sets up its zoning ordinances. We moved into this neighborhood thinking it's a residential neighborhood, and we did not expect to have essentially a hostel or a hotel across the street. So I'm hoping you can consider that in your deliberations. This is a strictly residential area, and this facility changes the character of the neighborhood in a way that we don't want to have. So I would also point out that parking is an issue. Right now, with 3 people, it's not really an issue. But there are, for instance, on the south side, there's some neighbors that have an awful lot of cars, and our street is already fairly clogged on the south end. So I'm sure that with more residents, that will also become an issue. So that's it. Thank you.
Questions, please stand by.
Mr.
Dee?
Morgan, I think you might have just answered it. I was just curious about the traffic, the increase of the traffic with the 3 residents, the additional residents that they have in their home. How is that on a daily basis, basically? I mean,
Well, it's difficult for me to predict the future. I can say that right now, it's not an issue. But I can say that in general, their driveway is full, and in general, there's maybe 1 or 2 cars on the street in front of our house, or nearby anyway. And so, to me, it's strictly a matter of numbers. As they're apparently allowed as many as 10 occupants in a house, and I think you could very well anticipate a lot of cars out in the street and clocking up things.
right, thank you.
Jeff, you have a question?
No.
Anybody on this end? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
There are no more speakers for this application.
And the applicant, you all may come back up and have some rebuttal time if you'd like. If you don't care to, that's okay. Feel free to say what you need to say in a couple.
State your name again for the record.
Okay. Again, my wife Normita, and my name's Randy Plen. Couple of the things that, that was talking about is the issue of group home. Probably should have stated that from the beginning, because when we applied for the conditional permit, it's, we wanted the
residential level of care,
is
not a group.
not a
home.
group home. Group home is what they put us under the category, basically because of, they said the age group is normally 62 and above for senior living. But because we are willing to take people 55 and older, we didn't fall under the senior living, and that's why they put us as, listed us as a group home. So a lot of
Instead
people,
residential.
a lot of people feel scared that it's a group home, taking people off the streets and, you know, mentally challenged people or other things. So, and I know I've had a lot of people even stop me now that we got the signs in front of the house going, oh, you're doing a group home. So that's one of the things I want to address. The number of employees, right now, it's going to be my wife, me, and my oldest daughter, the 28-year-old, with, down the future, one employee only. But again, even with the level of care that we do for each person, it is not required by social service that we get certified under doing food preparation and other things. But my wife is, that's one of the things that she has already gone through herself to make sure she understands what she's doing and making sure she's certified to make sure we can provide the best care for these clients. So like food preparation, the medication issuing and everything else, she has gone through the certification, even though it's not required to do the AFC program or even for this level of care that we're doing, but still we are imposing it when we get an employee eventually, that they will also meet the qualifications and standards that we're setting. And that will be part of our policies or group issue.
Jeff?
I just want a clarification. So it's the two of you, your younger daughter, your older daughter, and then two grandchildren are living in the home?
Yes, sir.
Okay. 6.
Any other questions for the Platons? Thank you.
I still had more.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Only because of, I was trying to copy down what some of the
Apologize.
issues were.
Just take a
As
minute,
far as
please.
parking goes, right now, we only have the one driveway, but since I've started the addition, once the addition is done, I am going to expand the driveway. But I cannot do that until I've done the upstairs addition, because since I'm going to require different joists and all that, and trusses to make sure everything's secure properly, that if I have to bring anything or equipment onto the driveway, I don't want to destroy a new driveway. So we've agreed to 3 months after we do the addition, that I will expand the driveway to get the cars off the lots. And even if, and we're already looking at reducing down that as well. So, were you going to say something? Okay. That covers that. The transportation, like I said, we really don't see a lot more additional transportation, especially since we've already get the social service or whatever providing transportation, and these people, since we've had most of them, in fact, their kids barely come see them. They live in the local areas or family. It's not too often that the family members come see them. So we are not expecting additional traffic or issues there. As far as the guys being out front all the time, right now I got 2 guys that do sit out front because they're waiting on the bus to come by and pick them up in the morning. So they are out there, and then on the weekends, they like sitting out front instead of out back because they like waving at the neighbors, or a couple of the neighbors that walk their pets will stop and talk with them. And they really
I don't
appreciate
see any problem of if someone, but that's our front porch. They just sit there and have their coffee or tea. They do smoke cigarette. I know the Morgans hate people that smokes. Unfortunately, we cannot discriminate that if they're smokers or non-smokers. And so we allow them to smoke in front of the house, and they like sitting there. Some of our clients, like Mr. Fentress here, he prefers watching TV, but 2 of our clients, they're the outdoor type, and we cannot stop them if they wanted to sit in front of the porch all day or all night, especially on the weekend. But throughout the week, they're only home from when they get up in the morning. By 8 o'clock, they're already gone.
Where'd they go?
My two clients right now, they normally go to their other activities, and they don't get back till
Rec centers
5:30.
and other things.
So 5:30, they like to sit on the porch after dinner. I can't tell them, go up to your room, and you can't go outside. I think that's that's cruel.
And then the other thing I want to make a quick, because Elaine mentioned that we had a police come this weekend. Well, we did have somebody call the cops on us, saying that there's a reporting of major fights and also stabbing
Inside our house.
inside our house.
Somebody,
I was
neighbor.
sleeping, and my wife responded to the door, and when she got out there, the police officers were coming in more like a SWAT attack. And my wife's like asking what's going on, and they turned around and stated, someone called and said, there's, and my wife's like, my husband's sleeping. And
I just
they-
ate with the guys.
they
breakfast.
questioned two of our guys that were out front, and they just told them, we just finished eating, we just came out. And so the cops are like, and my wife's like, are you sure you got the right house? They said, yeah, the house with the big yellow group home sign, and there's a permit in the window. Cops are like, they're like, well, one of the neighbors called. And they said, well, nothing's happening here, we're leaving. And away they went. But we also had no ambulance. We haven't had one of our guys taken to an emergency room in about almost 6 months. That was one of the last guys that had a seizure in the house. Last year, he had a seizure, and social service replaced him because of apparently his condition got worse while he was in the rehab center, and they moved him out of our house right away. So I just wanted to state that. As far as property value of the house, one, I've already done other additions to my house, making sure it benefits and beautifies our neighborhood, as well as the current permits I have to make sure that it all looks good. And then the last thing is even though we're somewhat like a business, we've been taking care of these guys for 4, going on 5 years. Nobody seemed to even know we were doing this until we put that group home sign out to try making sure our community knows that, one, we're doing everything legally and up front, not hiding anything from anybody. But as far as them saying that, it's turning our house into a business, we do have other people in our neighborhood running businesses from their house. And like Roger was saying, just a little to the other side of my road, down a little further, a guy's got his business where there's 4 trucks, utility vans right in our road. And when they pick those up in the morning, then they replace them with other cars. So again, we don't normally have too many cars at our house. Social service will only come there, and they're only there for a half an hour reviewing things. And we don't plan on, numerous people being there because, like I said, we're lucky that even the family comes out and visit these people. Once they put them in our facility, they feel safe that these people are being taken care of. Social service checks on them all the time. And I guess the family says, oh, well, they're fine. Don't worry about them.
Let me ask you to let me have some of our people ask you some questions. Somebody had a hand up over here. You okay on this side? Don?
Got a question. The people that stay with you, you say they sit on the porch and wait for the bus to come pick them up. They just catch.
It's a transportation bus, which is arranged by
Where
social service.
where do they take them to doctor's appointments and things like that, or what?
Either doctor appointments or recreation.
So you don't supervise that?
No, sir. We
They own
normally,
their own. So, but they may not come back, but that's not yours.
they'll come back by 5 o'clock. In order for somebody to leave our house, they need to make prior arrangements with us. Like if, say, one of the guys want to go to 7-Eleven or Farm Fresh. That's why the level of care we take care of, these people have to be able to able to, to get around and not where they're handicapped or anything, that if they want to go to even Farm Fresh, we'll sign them out saying, okay, you're leaving the house at this time. What time are you going to do back? And if they don't return, then yes, we'd have to be alarmed on where are they. But with a bus transportation arranged by social service, we know that the bus picks them up about 8 o'clock in the morning. It returns them back by 5 o'clock in the evening.
So these people are not able to work, is that what you're telling me?
I believe so because of their age and,
Well,
because of.
55, I mean, there's a lot of people working at
Well,
55.
some of them, it's because of they got a little dementia or other things. Again, I'm not a doctor, so it's
Okay,
whatever the
so-
doctor prescribed.
So tell me about the meals. You two prepare all the meals for them during
She
the
does
day?
90% of them.
Okay, and do y'all have a time where everybody sits down and eats, or do you carry the meals to their rooms, or?
I
How do you-
prepare
how
a
do you-
meal for the guys first, because they have a scheduled set time for their medications.
So that you feed them in their rooms?
No.
Oh, they
In
come
the-
down?
Yes, sir, yeah. They come down with there's no food allowed in the bedroom. They can only have water up there, but not even soda, drinks, snacks, food. It all has to be eaten downstairs, yeah, in the dining or, yeah, we have a counter with bar stools around it.
So
And the guys prefer sitting in the bar stools instead of the dining.
So she'll prepare the food, and then we'll prepare each plate. We'll have it set down with already their forks and utensils and all that, and their evening medications if they've got it. And they'll come down and eat, and then take their evening meds as well.
Okay,
So it's essentially like a boarding house.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
It's essentially like a boarding house.
Yeah.
Any other,
I have one question.
David?
When you sign them out, say they're going to Farm Fresh, do they walk?
Yes, sir.
They do? And then,
So it's just like anybody in the community, which we get from even the townhouses walking by our house all the time. But most of our guys, we've only got the one guy that likes going to Walgreens, and he's one of the smokers, but it's rare that he goes out. Most of the time, he just want to sit on the porch, relax, and enjoy the wind.
Or his brother picks him
Or his
up.
brother will come by once in a while.
Dee?
So I'm sorry, it sounds like we're peltering you with 1,000 questions, but I'm just trying to get a little clarity on your foster care patients. So I guess I was under the impression that they had some physical and mental disabilities, but they're outside smoking and they're walking to Walmart and they're going to 7-Eleven, so I'm just trying to figure out, just sort of clarifying, are they boarders or are they patients, or sort of what?
We call them, they were called the residents. They don't want to call.
Right,
them
well, okay,
patients.
well, we'll call them residents.
Yeah.
But in the, I'm just trying to get a little clarity on,
What sort of type of people?
well, no, just sort of, where the level of care is, because we don't have an LPN, we don't have a CNN, we don't have an RN, we just have you and your wife making meals, and then some people, going to Walmart and things like that, and catching the bus, and so I'm just trying to get a better understanding of exactly what this facility is.
Because normally these people are living independently or with their family, but the minute there comes when it comes to time where they're missing their medications and the family cannot do that, or they can no longer, they forget the stoves if they're living independently and forget to turn off the stoves and stuff like that, or the family cannot prepare food for them, then they look for a place like ours. That's when AFC comes in, or the residential level of care comes in. Above that, we don't do. Ours is just 180L, and the medication distributions and food preparations, and that's it. It's not an assisted living, it's not a nursing home, it's not a group home either.
So I've got a question for you. You now call yourself an adult foster care facility. You're really not changing that use, you're just adding 3 or 4 people. They've called it residential living care because it has to be called that to fit into the ordinance.
Yes.
But your work is the same, you're just gonna add a few more people. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
Okay.
Yep, nothing's changing. We're still going to fall under
Got a new
social
name because the staff had to call it something new, but you're still an adult foster care facility providing a service to the Virginia Beach community.
Yes, sir.
Basically
That is
the
correct.
same, it's just that it's gonna be, it's not
Social
gonna be called.
Services is
Yeah.
your customer, and they're bringing people that need adult foster care to your home.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
If we have no more questions, we can close the public hearing, and then we can discuss it amongst ourselves. Thank you all for your time. So with that, we'll close the public hearing. Mr. Redmond.
Well, first off, let me just offer one note of condolence. That incident where someone called the police and reported a stabbing at your house, I think is reprehensible. And it's not unknown to me because there is a similar facility for severely disabled adults immediately adjacent to my house. And I saw some pretty rotten things that people did when this facility was getting underway. It turns out they're wonderful neighbors. I don't know if the folks who spoke in opposition have any knowledge of that or might have been aware of that before they brought it up. Might have been good to ask. But I don't think that exactly does anybody's reputation any good. And very frankly, I was embarrassed by some of the things that occurred at the house next to me in my own neighborhood. As I said this morning, sometimes these things can bring out the worst in people. Signs up in front of there, they're talking about the drug dealers who are going to be there, and it was just all fiction. It was horrible, very frankly. A couple points. First off, these are needs or they wouldn't exist. It's a need, and that's why people live there. The staff has taken, I think, great care. Ms. Coleman this morning told me that they were very comfortable. You tell me otherwise if you think that's the case. Told me they were very comfortable with the application, with the provision that it be 8 adults. They don't need LPNs or RNs or anything else because they don't provide that level of care. And I would remind you of the line in this, which I would urge everybody to read these things that the staff writes up. Routine inspections will be conducted by a designated social services inspector to ensure safety and adequate care is provided to the individuals living in the home. These are heavily regulated facilities. They're inspected. The people who run them have to be certified. And I think sometimes the suspicion that we heap on these things is very frankly unfair and discriminatory to the and the disabled. And there's no way around it. There are people who live in arrangements like this because they're the only appropriate arrangement in which they can live. I have yet to hear an objection today that held a lot of water. They're going to increase the parking at the urging of the staff. They've reduced this to 8 and have a building permit for a building to accommodate that. They might not always have 8, but that's what they can do. They're providing a need. And I accept the gentleman's explanation, probably never anybody knew it was there until an orange sign went up. So I would ask you all, frankly, and City Council too, to look into your hearts and understand there are people that have needs that go beyond ours. And we ought to be a little kinder sometimes in our representation of things as a community. I was appalled at the things that I saw in my neighborhood, and I'm not very frankly terribly pleased with what I heard about the service call to the police in this one. Sometimes people are that way, and it shouldn't be that way. So I certainly am going to support the application. I urge everyone else to support the application. I don't see a good reason not to, and see lots of good reasons to do so.
Any other comments? Jeff?
Can I just defend myself, please? I feel like I need to say it.
Mr. Thornton? Mr. Thornton?
Yes, please, but come address us and state your name for the record. And keep it very short if you don't mind.
My name is Elaine Morgan again, and I absolutely agree that we do need to take care of our elderly. I said that when I was up here before. I feel like I'm being accused of that I'm the person that called the police. I did not call the police. My husband did not call the police on Saturday. We just made that observation.
My point was, you might have asked before you brought it up, what occurred across the street I mean, you said they're good neighbors. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. Somebody called the police. Apparently, I mean, I guess the police could tell us who called the police. I don't know. It certainly
Exactly.
wasn't my assertion, but I think it probably would have been a helpful fact to have in mind what actually occurred there.
I agree, and I apologize if I was supposed to have called the Plattons before bringing that up. I didn't get a chance to, but I am sorry that I didn't, because if I would have known that, that would have certainly had some bearing. But I feel like I'm being accused or looked at as the person who called the police, and I did not. And I'm sure there is a record of who did call the police, so that could be checked on. And again, I don't have any objection to taking care of our elderly. Like I said, we took care of my mother and my husband's mother, but just the number of people is the concern. I 100% agree with you that this is a need in the community, but, more than 3-4 people starts to get to be a concern.
Thank you.
That's all. Thank you.
Jeff?
First, God bless the Plattons for what you're doing. I mean, I think it's admirable. But for example, last week, my in-laws came to visit, and they brought my sister-in-law and her brother-in-law and their 2 kids, and we added that to my family. There was 9 people in my house for the weekend, and I love my in-laws, just in case they were listening. But it was very crowded.
We're not sure.
It was my house is crowded. I mean, I don't have a large house, but we had 9 people in there for the better part of a week. And I'm looking at this, that there's 6 family members, potential for 1 helper, and then 8 potential guests, for a total of 15 people that could be living in this house. And I just know how much we bumped into each other with 9 people, and that just seems like a very large number to me to be in one home.
Okay. Karen?
I think that's where I am. I've waffled back and forth, and I think, David, you make some really good points. I'm less worried about the crowded aspect of it as I am how that crowded aspect affects the level of care. And so what my hesitation is the number. So if you have 6 people already living there, when the parents, the grandkids, the daughters, and then perhaps the caregivers, and perhaps 6 might be a more reasonable number, and then the level of care could be more comprehensive when you have that much going on in one house. That's a lot of people with a lot going on. And so that's where my hesitation is. It's not about the appropriateness necessarily of providing care for these individuals who need that care. It's how much activity impacts other activities in the house that need to be maintained and monitored.
Jan and then Jeff.
I also have the same thing and totally agree with the comments that Dave has made. I also agree that the number is where I have an issue. I like the idea. I like the thought. I think it's well needed. I too commend you. I couldn't personally do that. So those people who can care for children and adults, I applaud. I just too agree that it's a big number.
Kind of going hand in hand with that, when you put a lot of people in a small area, eventually somebody gets upset at somebody. Somebody's in my space, I want my space, and I just feel like you're going to run into that with that many people in this home.
Okay, Dave?
Well, you're aware it's going to be an 8-bedroom house.
Still, the house is the house. I mean, I could add 8 more bedrooms in my house. I put 15 people in my house, it's going to be just as crowded. I mean, in the dining room table, the living room, I mean, I couldn't imagine having that many people live in my house.
Thanks. I would remind you that I think the staff, now we're sort of making up numbers as we go along here in real time, which I've always find frustrating. I think the staff has taken pretty good care to examine that. These are heavily regulated facilities. I'm not going to be concerned about the level of care unless the State Department of Social Services is concerned with this level of care. And I think frankly, we ought to trust them and not pretend to be social service inspectors ourselves. This is going to be a big house.
I'm not worried about the level of care. I'm more worried about the number of people that you have in a small confined area. I mean, I think they could probably get adequate care, but I just think when you put that many people in a small, it's a recipe for tempers to flare.
I think, Dave. You want to say something, Dave?
Can I ask Mr. Platt a question real quick? Can you come back up here for 1 second? That's fine, you can come up here. Was there a reason why you started construction on your house before you even considered going for a conditional use permit?
Yes, sir. The reason I started, we did the conditional use permit around the same time we've been trying to apply for a permit on the house. One, I've had a problem where apparently whoever lived there prior to us, they built a small room over the garage. And since it's in the middle of the garage, the problem is every time we get a nor'easter rain, it hits the corner of the back of that house and it pours into my living room or kitchen. And because of that, I went up there trying to fix it. And when they built that addition, they cut the trusses up there underneath. And so when you're walking on the roof, it's just flopping because they never reattached it to the house. Because of that, me and my wife also wanted to expand the rooms for years ago when I first moved in and before I retired from the Navy. I'm retired Navy. We want to expand the rooms for the kids or, for the future. But then because of this vision, we said we're going to expand the rooms. So based on the number of people you allow us to have, we're still going to do the addition on the house. It's at least the main phase of the whole house. Right now, the 2 bedrooms out back might change a little based on the determination of this committee, but the main house, putting 6 rooms upstairs, we are pushing forward, sir.
Yes, David.
Not for y'all. Yeah, okay. This is for staff, and Mr. Redmond brought up a good point here about social services and being regulated. Have social services been talked to about having 8 people, and what were their concerns, or what were their thoughts, and what did they have to say?
Social services, having issues. Social services is aware, and the number is not their concern. It's up to you. They will come out and investigate based on the square footage of the rooms, where they determine the number. So it's kind of the building official and social services when they do their inspection. If they come and they have the 6 rooms upstairs, they'll tell them, okay, you can have 2 per room based on the square footage of those rooms that they build.
So what we come up with may be different from what social services says they can actually have then, once they do the inspection?
Yes.
Okay.
But we kind of want them to have up to that number that
Understand.
I suggested in the conditions.
Okay.
Jack Wall.
Thank you. I had I had 2 concerns, and one was the transportation and the parking, and I think those concerns have been met. I think through the social services, through the limited parking that's going to be on the site, and through the handy ride through the Platens actually doing the transportation. But the other one, the impact to the neighborhood. I mean, already there's 9 there, and so I personally would feel more comfortable with less than what's proposed as one of the conditions. I mean, 8, 5 additional persons there, plus staff, 15 in a single-family residential. To me seems excessive.
Okay, Dee.
I'd be more comfortable with 6 if y'all would, I like that better. And Dave, I'm sympathetic. My brother's been in group homes all his life, so, and he's extremely disabled. And I think to jump from 3 to 10 and 3 to 8 is a lot. I think that, slowly working our way is probably maybe a better way to go, and start at 6. And then I know that the conditional use permit is valid for a year, and maybe after that, if things, look good and the neighborhood is, an agreeable and things are working out well, then, we can increase it back up to 8.
Did you want to say something?
Yeah. I just have one quick question, and then I'm prepared to make a motion. If we come up with a number here, did I understand that social service could change that, increase that number, or they will agree with what we got? All right.
Decrease it, but not
They will agree with what you state in these conditions. So if you say 6, they'll agree to that. When they come to do their inspection, if they have the number of rooms that accommodate the 6, they will agree to your 6.
All right, thank you, appreciate that clarification. Based on that, I'd like to make a motion that we approve this application with 6 occupants in resident.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Dave? We have a motion by Jan and a second by David Weiner.
Mr. Chairman, I think a situation like this, the next one we have, we'll have more. I think we need to have somebody here from social service that we can rely on for their expertise in situations like this, because I think we could have ended this conversation a long time ago if we'd have had that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Along those lines, I think if we had a new category in zoning code, adult foster care facility 2 or some, and in lieu of group home, we'd have a different connotation in terms of the community's reaction to the sign and our reaction to the application. And a lot of assumptions were made about the character of the residents that might be there that it's totally changed as we've had this conversation. And I think we'd have been done about, 45 minutes ago if we'd have had a different title and more clarity about what exactly was happening.
Are you wanting to?
But I'm ready to vote.
Kay's trying to get you.
Kay, please.
Okay, this application is to you all because they wanted 10. Actually, if there are 8 aged, infirm, or disabled individuals with 1 or more resident counselors or other staff persons in a residential facility or assisted living facility for which the Virginia Department of Social Services is the licensing authority, they are considered a family, and they don't have to get a conditional use permit. They are considered a family in a residential district and are permitted. So even if you reduce this to 6, they actually are a family, at least in my reading of this, and in looking, they are doing aged, infirmed, or disabled. They have staff persons in a residential facility, and social services is going to license them. So they are actually, when you get down to 6, a permitted use.
Thank you. Well, if we move on the motion for 6, will this have to go to city council, or will you be able to?
What a good question. I don't believe it will go to city council because it will be a permitted use.
Okay.
So that's where we are. Even if you say you'd like to have it at 6, they still can do 8 because they are a permitted use at 8.
Well,
They came to you because they wanted 10, which took them out of being a family.
Mr. Redmond and then D.
Well, that precisely illustrates my point about why it doesn't make a lot of sense to just make up new numbers as we go along, because there are some facts that might apply. So,
Okay, let's see. Mike first and then Dave.
It might accrue to the benefit of the applicant if we pass it, if we're prepared to pass it at 6. They have a conditional use permit, and then they can decide, the city attorney can decide, city council can decide whether to do anything with it or not.
That is fine. You all voting on it doesn't
And if they
bother
want to come
me.
back
I just
later,
want you to know.
in future years and try to add to that, then they will have had a base they've gotten through us one time.
One more, David.
Mrs. Wilson, does that number 8 still count for the other 6 people that live into the house?
No. It only accounts for those who are aged, infirm, or disabled with 1 or more resident counselors or staff persons.
Has no idea what they count that actually other people live in the house?
No, and this is not something that the city came up with. This is the requirement from state law.
Well, thank you for clarifying.
We should have heard that a long time ago.
Yeah, we have.
I'm sorry,
That's
I
all right.
didn't want to stop the room.
We could have.
Didn't know where the train was going, did you?
Could have fixed this a long time ago. Well, we have a motion and we have a second and ready to vote.
We're going to 6 occupants?
Say again?
Yes.
Yes, the motion is for 6. You fully understand Mrs. Wilson's explanation?
Vote's open. By a vote of 9-4-2 against, the application of Normita and Patton and Randy P. Patton has been approved with the number changed to 6 occupants.
Definition of family in 11.
I almost forgot where we were.
D2.
Good research.
Our next applicant is D2 SXCW Properties LLC, which is an application for a conditional use permit car wash and automotive service station on property located at 3264 Holland Road, District 3, Rose Hall. Is the applicant come forward, please?
I think he's talking to the lawyer.
That's true.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, for the record, Eddie Burdon, Virginia Beach Attorney, representing the applicant. Representative Sams is here from Charlotte today. This was on the consent agenda, so I'm going to keep this very brief, and we've had very positive and I think very good dialogue with the Scarborough Square community representatives, and a couple of those folks are here today. The Jimmy McNamara has done a fantastic job. I think it's been a very cooperative effort, and we've got a lot of conditions that I think very much enhance and restrict the utilization of this property to make it, it's all unconditional B2 property, to make it a better situation for the community. The conditions that are recommended, including the added condition number 12, with the exception of condition number 8, since we're going to hear this, I'm going to go ahead and make the pitch. Condition number 8 is the only condition with which we object, and that's the staff indication that I believe the zoning administrator has indicated, I haven't seen anything in writing, that they're going to call these red synergy elements on the gas pumps signs. We don't believe that they are signs. That's not been anything that's been run up the flagpole. Obviously, if that determination is made, we wouldn't have them because we can't have more signs than the zoning ordinance allows, but we frankly don't believe that that's an accurate assertion, but that was what was made last month. And again, if that determination is made, we obviously won't have those synergy elements with the Exxon gas pumps. But so that's why we object to condition number 8. And as I said this morning, if we didn't have opposition here to speak, and I don't want to characterize their comments, I'll let them speak for themselves, we weren't going to fall on our sword on that, but we don't believe that they are signs. And again, if the city determines that they are, then obviously we wouldn't have them because we would be in violation of the sign ordinance. So all the conditions with that exception are acceptable. We're doing a big, beautiful brick wall behind this site, and we're leaving another 70 feet before you get to the road. So we're creating a very substantial break between, I guess our pointer doesn't seem to be working.
Dang it.
Well, I got a little bit of, I get it on my hand, but there we go.
Just use your finger.
It's, it's dying, that's for sure. Okay, thank you, Brad. Thank you. All right, oh, well, Jimmy, can we go back to where we?
Also change the slides.
Oh, so that's what I'm doing. Oh,
Take it away from me.
Anybody knows me, technology and I don't get along.
Eddie?
All right. No, it's all right. I'll use my finger. I'll use my finger. All this property back here is zone B2 like the rest of it. We're putting up a very beautiful brick wall with nothing but landscaping, green space, and more landscaping homes back here in Scarborough Square. The Lytle across the street, their building is only, I believe, about 30 or 40 feet off of the same street. Our building's all the way up in the front. So we're screening, landscaping, creating a absolute sense of place, arrival when you get past this development into the neighborhood. And so, and we've restricted the hours of operation. Again, we have nothing but positive dialogue, and we're restricting the uses on the out parcel, creating the buffer that Jimmy described this morning in the informal cooperatively. We would have put up another fence, but where their fence is inside of their property lines, because they have to have access to their backyards, we don't want to put another fence up and create the alley scenario where there's no eyes on it. So we're proposing a landscape buffer on the out parcel that will grow up, but it still have the ability to be able to be seen, and they have fencing on their property. So again, I don't want to belabor it since it was on the consent agenda. It's a very high quality facility. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions of Mr. Bourdon? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our first speaker in opposition is Miss Lynn Henry. And as you come to the podium, if you can please state your name for the record.
Hi, I'm Lynn Henry. I'm a homeowner in Scarborough Square. And I don't know how many of you were here in 2010, but I'm having a little bit of deja vu because we kind of went through this with a place called Raceco. They wanted to do that Raceco in the same exact location, gas station car wash. And planning passed it, and we fought it at city council, and they denied the project. Back then, we had Captain Lowe of the First Precinct behind us and a lawyer to help us. The issues haven't changed. Why do we need a gas station or a car wash within a stone's throw, literally less than 700 feet to the car spa at the corner of Holland and Lynn Haven? You can actually see the car spa from the sidewalk in front of this proposed Sam's. The Rio car wash down Lynn Haven is less than half a mile away. You have an Auto Bell 1.2 miles away down Holland Road near Lowe's, and in the other direction, a half mile away at Ship's Corner, you have 3 gas stations. Why do we need another gas station and car wash? It looks like a beautiful project. Mr. Bourdon has been wonderful about contacting us and keeping in touch, but we don't get it. I just don't understand. The amount of traffic that this place is going to generate, already with the Lidl in construction, we are seeing heightened traffic. It takes sometimes 2 to 3 light cycles to get out of our neighborhood in the morning during the peak traffic. They've noticed that they've started creating a second left turn lane, taking up 2 lanes going out onto Holland Road towards Ship's Corner. We're confused by this because most of the outgoing traffic is trying to get to the direction of Lynn Haven and Lynn Haven, not Ship's Corner. That right lane where people are backing up to get out of our neighborhood is going to be blocking the entrance to the Sam's Express. Along the same thought process, the entrance of the projected Sam's is going to be across from the Lidl. Sam's Express expects there to be destination traffic and is expecting people will come into Warwick with the intent of gassing up, getting a car wash, and then going across Warwick to the Lidl shopping center and groceries or whatever. This is going to make Warwick a nightmare to navigate. Then you have people coming in and out and then trying to cross it. There are also plans for some kind of division near the Court of Yorkboro. The properties, we defer to what you guys, we think the plantings look great. To conclude, we understand this land is own business and anything could go on this property. We are pleased by the 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. hours that Sam's is going to keep, and we do think it's a beautiful project. But we have the same concerns that we did when the Raceco was projected back in 2010. Traffic is not going to get better. If anything, it's going to get exponentially worse. Some of the neighbors feel that this is a probably lesser of the evils of what could go on this property. And yes, it could be, but as we are a neighborhood trying to deal with the issues that have been brought to the neighborhood via the surrounding businesses and recent shootings and violence that is occurring, is lesser of the evils what we really should strive for? Should we hold out for better? Thank you.
Any questions of the speaker? Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Fred Aldridge. And Mr. Aldridge is speaking on behalf of Scarborough Square. If you can please state your name for the record.
Fred Aldridge. I've been in Scarborough Square for 21 years, and it's getting worse all the time. I can't imagine any one of you wanting to live in a neighborhood where already now that we have the little store, a Hardee's, and a garage that is moving in at the corner. They have, as I understand, the gentleman says there's an estimated 1,500 vehicles coming through there. That's 750 in, 750 out. Now they're talking about 700 vehicles coming into the service car wash right straight across the street with 700. That's 350 in and out. We already have people cutting off Ship's Corner, coming along through Old Clubhouse, coming out where this section is. It's been getting worse as the years go by. We have over 500 residences in that neighborhood, plus the trailer park, Cardinal Estates, and the trailer park, as you go down to Ships Corners Road, that come out through that area. We're looking at a traffic problem right now. I have sat on the Holland Road section above Lynn Haven through 2 lights for them to go 1 traffic light down so people can turn into our section of Scarborough Square. If you come out there some days, especially towards rush hour, you can look to the left and find, as far as you can see, traffic backed up. Not only is it backed up down the street, but cars have to make a left turn coming from Lynn Haven Parkway into Scarborough Square. And you know what kind of butt heads, pardon the expression, but they jam that intersection so that nobody can go anywhere. We can't turn into there through the traffic. They don't leave a space for people to, they just rush. They want to get through that light, but they have to stop. It's ridiculous, and you're going to make it more by approving this service station car wash. Now, as Lynn pointed out, it may be the lesser of 2 evils, but who wants an evil in your neighborhood? Okay? I don't know how it can be approved if it was in your neighborhood, any one of you. I appreciate your taking a chance on us and being able to state our situation. And I hope you will think about it, especially if it were your neighborhood. Please, thank you.
Any questions of Mr. Aldrich? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We have no other speakers.
All right. Not exactly the tone I was anticipating. Raceco was an application for a convenience store with gas and a car wash, much lower quality and much higher traffic generation. This is actually a substantial reduction in traffic. It's not destination traffic. Tried to explain that because I didn't do a very good job. Most of it is actually capture traffic because of the large shopping center with a number of out parcels and Lytle adjacent to, across the street on the south side. The car wash will generate, we hope, as many as 200 customers a day, which is actually only 400 trips because they count in and out as a trip. And if you look on page 3 of the staff evaluation, and I'm sure if you want to ask Mr. Lohman his input, this is a low traffic generating use. If you had a convenience store, that adds a whole lot of traffic. There is no convenience store here. This is, as I said, unconditional B2 property upon which something akin to what's across the street where the Lytle is going can go in as a matter of right. Any number of uses that would be much more impactful and wouldn't have to cede over all this extra space on their property with a beautiful brick wall landscaping on the backside. That completely buffers and segregates the commercial use on this large piece of unconditional B2 property. Both the speakers alluded to the lesser of evils, and that's characterization. Free country, they can make that characterization. I'm not going to argue with them. I know from experience, I think you all know from experience, and I'm certain staff understands from experience, that this is a far better use of this piece of property with the hours restricted, which won't happen with a by right use, than what would almost certainly go on this piece of property were it not for the need for a use permit, which is what we have in this case, the need for. Exxon high-quality gas station as well. I know you all know Linda Russell. She's here. She offered to speak. She's in favor of what's proposed. She's very active in this area and active in this community. Again, if it was a convenience store, I understand. If it's open, late hours, I can understand. But this applicant, high quality application and applicant has, I think, stepped up the plate. I think staff will tell you they've stepped up the plate to do a very high-quality development that will not be a destination that will create a bunch of traffic. In fact, it's the opposite. Most of the people that'll be going here will already be going to the existing or the soon-to-be-open shopping center adjacent, immediately adjacent to the south. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions of Mr. Burdon, Jeff?
I think you just said, based on the hours of operation, but I don't see any hours of operation unless I just missed them. I was scanning through here.
Yeah, we've restricted the
Are they-
hours.
I'm sorry, I may have
Yeah, they're in the
overlooked.
7 a.m. to.
Item number 3 on the background, 7 to 9.
Okay, thank you.
7 a.m. to 9 p.m. And that's a very restrictive hours of operation.
Other questions? Thank you, Mr. Burdon.
Thank you all.
There are
If-
no other
If
speakers.
there are no other speakers and no other questions, I would, we would close the public hearing and we, Jeff,
Yeah, you guys said it was where?
well, maybe I'm.
It's located under the summary,
Page
background-
2.
Background and summary of
Third bullet.
proposal.
but it's not a condition.
Not a condition, but it's,
Please, I thought it was a condition. We've agreed to it as a condition, so. Yeah, please add that as a condition.
See, I'm not as blind as you.
Thank
No, I'm
you.
not. You don't need
so
to.
now that we've gotten past that degree of confusion, let's, Don,
What did we decide to do about condition 8, about the sign, the so-called signs? Are we going to leave that in there or take it out?
well, Mr. Burdon has asked that it not be removed, so that's sort of up to us to decide whether we want to leave it or remove it.
No, he said
He's going to go along with,
He's
if,
going to remove it.
he said he would remove it if the decision is made that it is a sign, but if you all decide that it's not a sign, he wants to leave it. Is that right? Is that my understanding?
Yeah.
He's arguing whether that it's a sign or not.
Correct, and there's another process beyond this that will handle my interpretation of whether or not it's a sign. If it is determined a sign, it would have to get a sign permit and meet the requirements of the sign ordinance, which having that many signs would exceed the number allowed on site. So that would be a catch for there. If it's, determined not to be a sign, then it just a structure, as long as it meets the setbacks and is under the canopy, would be fine.
So if we leave 8 in there, it won't be permitted. He's asked that we remove it and then go through this other process. And if the process determines that it is a sign and it's not allowed, then it's not.
Right, I think we're fine either way, because even if it's taken out and they wanted, and they were able to add those later, if they were determined it's not a sign, then that could still be in substantial conformance.
Okay. So we leave 8 as it's written
Adding the hours of operation.
and adding the hours of operation.
Number 12.
Okay, other points. Jack?
I just want to, I want to thank Mr. Aldridge and Mrs. Henry for, for coming out and speaking. And, I do appreciate their concerns. And I think this will add traffic burden to Warwick Drive. But, it should be noted that it is already Zone B2. And, whether it's, considered, the lesser of two evils, I think that the applicant has worked closely with staff to provide quite a few amenities that probably wouldn't be there if it didn't come through this process. It didn't come through the planning commission, which include the screening and the landscaping, the wall, the 8-foot wall, and the buffering, as well as the architecture. That their prototype architecture for this, this type of facility, could be much different than what it is. So I'm in support of it.
Okay. Mike?
I make a motion, we approve the application with the addition of the hours of operation being added as 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Second.
Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Inman to approve and a second by Mr. Ripley.
Who seconded?
Mr. Ripley?
Mike made the motion. Add a condition of hours of operation?
Yes, as stated in the summary section, it's 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., I think.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Excuse me, the addendums had a condition 12 as well. Is that part of your motion?
correct?
Let's make sure we know what you're asking. Condition 12, would you, I don't have
It's
this
the-
summary sheet
It's the
with,
sign.
oh, the sign.
It's right here.
Okay. Is that okay with you, Mr. Burdon?
Yes, that's.
Item number
fine.
12.
We agreed to put up
Okay.
the community.
We just, what we have on our screen, we don't have those other pieces in front of us. 1 through 12 and adding, I guess, the hours. So we have a motion.
13.
Thank you.
Wait a second. Thank you. Vote is open.
Vote of 11-0, the commission has approved the application of SXCW Properties 2 LLC with the 12 conditions, and with a condition of hours of operation being added.
Yes.
Well, that would
That will
actually
make-
make it 13
that will
conditions.
make
13
conditions.
conditions.
And a sign.
The sign has been put on as a number 12,
Okay.
and number 13 would be the hours.
It's approved, 11-0.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our last item on the agenda today is D3, Grace Bible Church of Virginia Beach, which is an application for a conditional use permit, religious use, and a conditional rezoning AG2 agricultural to conditional B2 community business on property located at 2285 London Bridge Road, District 7, Princess Anne. I guess I don't need to tell you to state your name for the record, do I?
Thank you, Jan. For the record, Eddie Burdon, Virginia Beach attorney representing Grace Bible. In addition to myself, Les Watson will have a few comments along with Pastor Breitenberg for the church. Y'all heard this last month, but I'm going to have to go through a lot of information, apologize. But Herbert and Mary Smith have owned or bought this farm 50 years ago. They raised their daughters on this farm, taught them to ride horses, and taught countless children to ride horses. And Mrs. Smith continued to operate and maintain this horse farm after her husband passed away in 1990. All the while, all the property around her didn't grow crops and didn't grow horses, they grew houses. Pine Ridge, County Manor Lane, Strawbridge, the neighborhood, and Strawbridge, the shopping center. We almost got lucky. We almost had Churchill Downs on the Taylor Sisters farm just to the northwest of Mrs. Smith's horse farm, which the Smiths and many, many other people in our community really, really tried hard to get. Didn't work out at the state level, but her horse farm would have been very, very well situated, and we wouldn't be here if Churchill Downs had. We've been fortunate enough to have them in Virginia Beach. Instead, we've got a lot of industrial uses on the land where Churchill Downs would have gone, plus Prince George Estates. And another horse farm in the area, the largest, Linda Taylor Chapels on Dam Neck Road, is now predominantly a series of industrial parks. Unlike Mrs. Smith, the Navy paid the Taylor family for their residential development rights and put restrictions on their property requiring it to be developed when it was developed as an industrial or industrial uses that are compatible with the operations at NES Oceana. 2005 BRAC, there was a paradigm shift. Instead of the Navy continuing to compensate landowners for the removal of their residential development rights and consistent with the comprehensive plan for decades, the city at that point capitulated after a lot of hard work, a lot of discussion, a lot of debate, but they went along with what was deemed to be necessary to keep Oceana here, valuing Oceana and its land use above other folks' land uses and potential land uses. They took away the opportunity Mrs. Smith would have had without compensation. No residential development can occur on this property. That had been the vision in our comprehensive plan for decades, and that's how all of the property adjacent to her developed with 3 to 3.5 units per acre. Mrs. Smith is the poster child for the unavoidable impacts of a community's decision to value the Oceana land use and the jobs it creates above all else. And that is not intended to be a criticism. That was a conscious decision that the city made, and I think made the right decision. Up until now, the city has done an excellent job of threading the needle. Most folks who were impacted have been able to see that impact lessened and/or been paid for the impacts through other means. Mrs. Smith, to her absolute credit, has not gone around whining about her fate, has not, made a poster child of herself. But make no mistake, had her property not been so impacted, developers would be standing in line, as they were prior to 2005, offering her far more money than she's able to get from my client, Grace Bible Church. If she could have developed 75 to 80 homes on her property at 3 to 3.5 units per acre like everybody around her did. The property that she's on and has owned all these years has the misfortune of being in the above 70 dBN. If it were in the 65 and above dBN, then she would be able to get the rezoning for the 3 to 3.5 units per acre. But that's where the lines fall. So what we have is, in my view, and in, most importantly, your professional staff's view, an excellent opportunity to thread the needle. This is not an application to put a 20.6 acre industrial park on this piece of property, which is really the only other use that meets the Navy's criteria, unless you're talking about doing a 20.6 acre shopping center on the property, which also would be acceptable, but it would have to eliminate some of the uses that the Navy objects to. So we have a church, which is a fantastic use, along with a very limited amount of commercial use up on a 4-lane arterial highway, London Bridge Road, not at the entrance to anybody's neighborhood, not at the entrance road to anybody's neighborhood. The first thing I'll talk about, that y'all talked about in this morning's briefing, is access. We talked at length about this last month, and we are prepared to offer voluntarily a revised proffer number 1. And I've reviewed this with both Ms. Wilson and with Rick Lohman, and I will take a second to read it. Apologize for having to do so, but in place of proffer number 1, the church would propose, when the properties are developed, they shall have vehicular ingress and egress from London Bridge Road with turn lanes at the existing median break and at least one other location to be determined by the grantee's city manager and his staff during site plan review, period. Based upon the location of the second point of access, the configuration of the parcels as shown on the exhibit entitled, and then it goes to what's in the proffer today, exhibit entitled Conditional Rezoning Exhibit Grace Bible Church, London Bridge Campus, 2285 London Bridge Road, GPIN 2405-70-2584-0000, District 7, Princess Anne, Virginia Beach, Virginia, which has been exhibited to the Virginia Beach City Council and is on file with the Virginia Beach Department of Planning, the conceptual layout which may be revised. Okay, so we're saying that 4 parcels may be revised depending upon where the other access goes. And I won't belabor the point, but as I mentioned last month, we can have a full turn lane entry to the western entrance, which we think is the safer way to go. What we don't have is the ability to have 120 feet between that entrance and the start of the next turn lane, versus putting the turn lane in the far east end in the curve and near to the homes that are on Country Manor Lane. So, but that's something to be determined with traffic engineering, city manager, planning director, and city staff. But we are agreeing to have that modification based on which is deemed to be the safest, and that would include modifying potentially the layout and moving the landscaping, as Rick Lohman described this morning. We're not in disagreement with most of what was indicated this morning. While we're on that topic, this is on me as far as the proffers and a mistake. I understood wrongly that the conditions that we put in here that are the city's retail guidelines required that a drive-through be behind the building. We will, between here and council, add another proffer that any drive-through that's placed on any of the 3 parcels other than the easternmost parcel would meet the requirement that it be behind the building. Again, I can't imagine that our guidelines would allow a drive-through that's not behind the building, but we'll add that because it's not in the actual verbiage. We just took it all out of our retail guidelines, put it in the proffer agreement word for word, and made it a requirement. And the church was very, very glad to put that in there. From day one, put it in there. They want to make absolutely certain that what is out in front, and they are in the position that that will happen, is of the highest quality. No one could care more about that. Others would care, but no one can possibly care more because it's their front yard. The appearance, the quality of what's out there will be at their entrance and their front yard. The church has also gone to the trouble, as I discussed last month, of we want to be able to have potentially a gymnastics training or teaching facility or a yoga studio, things that make perfectly good sense on this property that aren't allowed in any B1 or B1A zoning. So we've taken B2. I've asked the community, asked Commissioner Beardsley-Quasney to get with the community and give us a list of the things they don't want to see on the property. And we put things on there that weren't on their list, and I got that confirmed by Randy Vogel in his conversation I had with her last night. We've gone beyond what's on their list, but we did not exclude all potential for a eating and drinking establishment with a drive-through. At last month's hearing, we were asked, I think it was by Commissioner Oliver, it might have been Commissioner Hodgson, if the church would agree to reduce the potential, which we readily did, and agreed that there'd be no more than 2, it may not be any, but no more than 2, and that they would not be on the easternmost parcel, but would be, if they were any, would be on the 2 middle or the western parcel as shown. And that's eating and drinking establishment with a drive-through, where you could have a Tasty Freeze or a Krispy Kreme, any number of uses that I think most people would like. We hear a lot about, don't want a McDonald's, a Taco Bell, a Burger King, a Wendy's, any of the fast food places. Well, the reality of this is that this isn't a shopping center. They're already out there on General Booth, Boulevard, Nemo, and it's not going to happen here. And we're not looking for that to happen here. But we don't have a category of fast food with a drive-through. We have all eating and drinking establishments, be it a deli, be it an ice cream shop, be it a coffee shop. That's what we have to deal with. And that's why we have in the proffers what we have. Not that the church is looking to put any of the fast food giants out here, and trust me, none of the fast food giants would go out here.
Mr. Badon?
Yeah, that's
I
it.
hate to interrupt you.
Okay,
But
you
we
can
just
interrupt
have
me.
a
It's
lot of
perfectly
speakers
fine.
today. I'm sorry.
I try to keep it as short previously as possible, but.
I'm sorry.
And this is stuff we've already talked about. So,
Right.
I know you all are familiar with it. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And I will let my other folks come up and talk if you want to. Thank you.
Let's do that. Thank you.
Okay, our first speaker in support is Matt, is it Breitenberg?
Can we get Les Watson to come up
Well,
first?
they asked me to call him in this order, but we can absolutely change the
Please.
order. Les Watson, please.
Madam Chair and members of the commission, I'm Les Watson. I'm a local attorney, and I represent the property owner, Ms. Mary Smith, who, as Mr. Badon pointed out, has owned this property for, I think, 47 and a half years. And as you know from Mr. Badon's eloquent recitation of the history, this property is subject to substantial zoning prohibitions that affect the uses to which it can be put. And we've looked at this situation as carefully, and we've worked with Mr. Badon and with the staff and tried to be as cooperative as we could. And I think the resolution that Mr. Badon has presented is sort of like this. It's of all the things that could ultimately happen at this site, we think that the application, the project that's described in this application is precisely that sort of thing which will have, at the same time, the least impact and also will allow a fair use of Ms. Smith's property. And I compliment Mr. Burdon on his eloquent presentation and his recitation of the history, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you've got.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So our next speaker is Matt Breidenberg. And as he's coming to the podium, for those of you that are wondering what has happened to our illustrious chair, he has recused himself because he has a relationship with this, and it would be inappropriate for him to sit on this hearing. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Matt Breitenberg. I'm one of the pastors of Grace Bible Church. I'd like to share a little bit about our church and about this project. We're an independent church founded in 1991. This would be our third campus. We have a campus in Virginia Beach, and we have a campus in Norfolk, which we started about 2 years ago. We care deeply about kids and families. We have over 600 kids in our weekend kids programs every week. That's about the size of a typical elementary school in Virginia Beach. We also care deeply about serving our local community. We partner with organizations to care for needy people, Judeo-Christian Outreach Center, Union Mission, Penn Ministry, nursing homes, and others. We have a community garden that produces thousands of pounds of fresh organic produce, which we donate to organizations who feed the poor in our community. We also partner with public schools and encourage students, teachers, and their families. We're launching a new partnership with Bird Neck Elementary, which is just a few miles from our hoped-for new campus. We're seeking this rezoning simply because we need to sell the front parcels in order to make our financing work for this project. We've had multiple conversations with neighbors, including hosting a town hall meeting. We have tried to be as responsive as we could be. Our initial submission had restrictions on B2 uses, and since then we have come back with further restrictions. We've agreed to nearly all of the restrictions that the neighbors have asked for, as you've heard, but frankly, we can't make any further restrictions in order to make this project work for the church. Whoever buys these parcels would literally be in our front yard. So for that reason, it would be our intention to make sure that it's a quality organization that would be there, that would not interfere with the neighborhood nor with the church. We care very much about what's in our front yard, and we'll make every effort to find good partners to buy these parcels. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker in support is Edward Glucki. And sir, as you come to the podium, if you could state your name for the record.
Okay. My name is Edward Glucko. I'm not really opposed to the church, but I have a couple concerns. Last time we had a storm, and I think the water was about 2 feet deep in the backyard there, which is a lot of flood water for that area. And if they raise the ground for the church with backfill, what's going to happen to all that water? The other problem I have is the parking area after the church is closed. I had a business one time, and after the business hours, people gathered in the parking area, and I'm worried about crime and noise and everything else. So those are my concerns.
Thank you. Any questions? No? Okay.
Are these concerns, have they been addressed by the church? Just curious.
We'll get back with those.
Okay, thank you.
With you. Thank you very much.
Okay, our first speaker in opposition is George Ingram. Sure. Who would that be? Tom Hollowell? Well, yep, there you are.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
My name is Tom Holden. I know it's getting late, so I won't try to belabor this too much. I'm a resident of Hunt Club Forest, and I've come to you in opposition to the application for rezoning of this property at 2285 London Bridge Road. You're going to hear from a lot of residents who live near this project today, and they're all united in opposition to it. We believe that changing the zoning from AG2 agricultural to conditional B2, it will lead to development that's incompatible with the long-term interests of the neighborhood. We believe that because of the proffers included in the application. The application calls for the development of 4 outparcels fronting London Bridge Road with the church at the back. These proffers indicate a desire for businesses that, and specifically some of them are drive-throughs, to populate an area that's currently occupied by pasture. So creating and maintaining this stable and sustainable neighborhood is difficult. We understand that. And we're fortunate that most of the city neighborhoods are actually pretty stable, and even though the city housing is aging. And we also understand that some of the proffers that have been offered in this proposed project have addressed some of the concerns. But some of the core concerns are not addressed, and it's really what drives us today. The cities, and I don't want to lecture anybody at this podium, nor the staff, because I'm not an authority on planning at all. I'm not. But in reading the city's comprehensive plan, one of the guiding principles for suburban areas is to create great neighborhoods, and this is made this reference to this in this planning document. To support those neighborhoods with complementary, non-residential uses in such a way that working together with the stability and sustainability of the suburban area is ensured for now and in the future. So in infill development on small vacant parcels within an existing development or on parcels being redeveloped, it should be compatible to the existing development around it. So designing a project that's scaled in proportion to the surrounding community is often a lot more difficult than simply using a design that fits the site and meets the zoning regulations. Mr. Boudon made a lot of statements that I frankly couldn't follow because I'm not a zoning expert like he is. There were changes being discussed that I don't know what they are. There's a lot of additional language used that seems kind of confusing to me. But the goal here, as I understand it, is to respect land use and design and to give the impression to those who pass by a project that has always been a part of the original development. Adding a fast food restaurant or a quick service restaurant or one with drive-throughs in a community that's defined by farms and residential areas does not meet this criteria. I see my light blinking here. To create and maintain great neighborhoods with an emphasis on residential components must be balanced by an emphasis on the commercial component. We get that. Each land use is dependent on the other, and accordingly, the quality and the vitality of one affects the other. They're all related. So please consider our request. Please deny this application. These communities are willing to work with the owners on their legitimate needs to make their property productive. But please, not this one. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now let's try George Ingram.
Okay. Since I don't have the benefit of visual equipment, excuse me.
Sir, if you can just state your name for the record, please.
I'm sorry, George Ingram. I'm the president of Pine Ridge Civic League. I'd like to hand out some pictures, if that's okay, since I don't have audio, video presentation. Packet, that's like 9 packets, you can pass them around, so I can reference those pictures as I go through. As I said, my name's George Ingram, president of Pine Ridge Civic League, and I want to voice our concern and our opposition to the proposed rezoning of this property as it is currently being presented. As you can see, Tom just mentioned, this property, if you look at this drawing, and most of you are probably somewhat familiar with this, it shows this property totally encompassed within a residential area. At the rear of it, and I'll wrap around this side to the west side, is the Pine Ridge subdivision, and on the east edge is White Pine. And then across the street, you have residents. Now, all of us that live in that area are confronted with traffic situations on that road every single day. So we're quite versed in what the problems are being faced by everybody traveling that road. Currently, it's Ag 2, and again, like I said, it's residential all around there, and we'd like to see it kind of stay in that same zone. We have concerns and question the logic of mixing residential areas with business development. Currently, there is a mix of amenities that are designed to enhance our community, such as sidewalks and bike paths, parks, farms, and those types of things there. And so it does not seem to blend well with commercial development and in the traffic that would be associated with that. Traffic safety, that's my primary concern here. I want to speak to traffic safety, especially to express our deep concern over traffic safety and how this proposed development would negatively impact our ability to drive through the area. Now, all of us now are confronted with the problem of getting out of our neighborhoods, coming onto a 4-lane highway. Got 2 lanes in each direction, obviously. And if we're coming out of the neighborhood and we want to go, let's say, to the west out of Pine Ridge, we have to wait for a line of traffic to come through so we can cross over. And then once that clears, we got to hope that the traffic coming the other way is not coming through there. It's going to block our ability to exit. So it's not uncommon on any given morning for traffic to be backed up at all these exits, people trying to get out of their neighborhoods. And so if this development is permitted down here at the current Fox Ridge Farm, it's going to add to that traffic flow, and I'll talk to that in just a moment. Currently, there's about 21,000 vehicles traveling this road. That's based by traffic engineering. And the proposal says that we'll probably get about close to 4,000 additional vehicles. And that will raise the number of vehicles traveling that road to about 25,000 vehicles per day. The maximum capacity for road, based on traffic engineering, is 28,000. So we're approaching that maximum. And so that's going to get into an area that's not even concerning any other development that may occur if we permit this type of development to occur. It opens the door up, we put B2 development here, and it's going to open up the door for it to go down the street. Over the years, been numerous accidents along that area. There's been any number of accidents, people hitting trees, a light pole's been taken up many times. And so even though traffic engineering said this morning it's a relatively safe roadway, there still are a large number of accidents occurring on that roadway. I'll give you some statistics here. From 2014 to 2017, there were, at General Booth intersection, 74 accidents. At the Tower Bridge going into Castleton, 19 accidents. At Mirror Lake going into Lake Placid, 15. Dam Neck, 110. And dispersed at every other intersection where any number of accidents occurred. The next leading one was at Pine Ridge subdivision, where there were about 19 accidents that occurred there. So it was a total of 263 accidents occurred in this 1 mile radius. To me, that seemed like a lot. And unfortunately, 2 of those accidents resulted in fatalities, one of which is directly in front of that planned development. There's a cross in the median. It sits directly in front of that proposed site. So it kind of begs the question, how hazardous is that location? We have an unusual traffic flow there. Because of so many people coming down the road from 264, and when they want to get to General Booth Boulevard, so much development in the southern portion of the city, people are merging over to the right lane. And that starts even before you get to Pine Ridge. And so on any given day, you'll see cars backed up along the right lane, and there won't be anybody in the left lane. If you look at pictures 2 and 3, it kind of shows you how this traffic is backed up. And if you look at picture 3, all the traffic is in one lane. And that occurs way back there because everybody's moving over. So obviously, they're going to be coming over into one lane in front of that proposed development. All right? All right. The other issue is, if I go back to my drawing here, or my picture here, I think most of you have been out there. There's a significant curve in that roadway. And as you progress around from the west end, and you come around here, this Pine Ridge right here, there's a little bit of a bend here, and that's kind of a blind spot. And as you come around, you're working your way around. And so when you put turn lanes in there, that's going to affect how people will be able to see down the roadway. If you go to picture 4, there's in front of that proposed property, you're looking down that curved road, and it shows you the curvature in the road heading east. The next picture is showing the same area from the opposite end of the property, looking westward, and you can see that curve. The other picture, number 6, shows you in front of the property on the opposite side of the roadway, and you can see the curve in that road. Okay. So obviously, whenever anybody's traveling a highway and they're coming around a curve, there's some issues about obstructed view. Okay. Talk real quick about traffic volume. The church currently is planning to build a facility for, they call it campus, 600 people. If you look at how they operate at their other facility, they currently have 4 sessions on Sundays, 2 on Saturday, and some on Fridays, I'm not sure how many, and plus, as they mentioned earlier, lots of different activities. So they're going to have a large number of people coming in this facility every day. If they're going to have 600 people maybe in parking for 350 vehicles, four sessions in one day on Sunday, you're talking 350 vehicles coming in, 350 vehicles going out. You add that up 4 times, that's 2,800 vehicles. Now, to make matters worse, if we permit a drive-in restaurant in front of that facility, which they want to do, or have the option to do, that's going to add to the problem as well. By definition, drive-in restaurants are designed to create one thing, traffic. That's how they operate. They want to create a lot of traffic. So the church itself is going to create a lot of traffic, and the development in front of it's going to create a lot of traffic. All right? But I do want to talk about the issue of being able to see where you're going. Okay? Talk real quickly about entering and exiting the facility. If you look at picture 8, that's, again, looking down the roadway in the westerly direction, and that's traffic would be coming towards General Booth Boulevard. And if you could visualize that sidewalk being a turn lane, and you had cars parked in where that sidewalk is, you would not be able to see down that roadway because of the curvature. And I think this morning the traffic engineer said he wanted to have a turn lane of about 400 and some odd feet. So that's a lot of vehicles stacked down there. You would not have any visibility to be able to pull out of that facility because your view would be totally blocked. So people are going to be trying to get out of that facility and not be able to see where they're going. It's bad enough on a straight road. Now, there's no plans for a traffic signal, and even if a traffic signal's there, if I go back to what some of the statistics I mentioned earlier, the most accidents occurred at traffic signals, and that's a common occurrence. Okay. Now, when people do exit, they've got one option to get out, and if they want to go west, they've got to come out where the median strip is, and then they can turn left. There's no traffic light, and if they can turn left, they've got to cross those lanes of traffic. Or they may try to go to another exit and go down and make a left turn, or make a U-turn when they get around there. If you see here, as they come around here, there's the median opening right here. So if they exit here and they want to come here, there's an opening in the median, but there's no turn lane there. They'd have to go down to the next one at Hunt Club and make a U-turn. So a lot of vehicles would obviously be forced to make U-turns. You'd have so many vehicles coming out at one time. A business normally operates 12 hours. You have 350 vehicles coming in your business over a 12-hour period. That's 25 vehicles per hour. But they're going to have 350 vehicles exiting that facility at one time, plus the traffic of the businesses. So for those reasons, we're really very concerned about our safety and the safety of everybody traveling that roadway. And so for that reason, we request that you deny this proposal as is currently presented and not permit rezoning to B2. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greenberg.
Our next speaker is Mark Schreier.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Schreier. I've been a resident of Virginia Beach since 1987. I've watched our area grow, our area of the city develop exponentially. Today I represent subdivision of Mayberry as one of its board members, and we ask that you deny the request for rezoning of Fox Ridge Farms from agriculture to B2 for the following reasons. Okay, as your chairperson, I guess what you call them, pointed out, we have to deal with ACUs. Okay, with the proximity of our area to NAS Oceana, it is a very big concern to us. With this, very big concern to us. Okay, with the success of our city, we have encroached on Naval Air Station Oceana to the point where in 2005, the BRAC Commission put the only East Coast master jet base, Fate, in the hands of City of Virginia Beach to prevent further encroachment. I moved to this city because I was stationed at NAS Oceana. Okay, our city thrives in part due to NAS Oceana, with its jobs it provides, and the sailors and their families that live there because of where they are stationed. Our schools benefit because of the government funds that go into our local schools because of all the children of our military families. Okay, the next reason is due in part to light pollution. The amount of light that will be generated from the proposed parking lots will not fit in our farm/subdivision area. The proposed landscape along London Bridge will be inadequate to screen that amount of light. I believe the proposed is just shrubs along the road front. Okay. Next, as you look at the map, you can see all the subdivision. If I walk around front, you won't be able to hear me. You can see all the subdivisions that are around it and three sides. Across the street is horse pastures. Okay, and your commissioner brought up that Mary Smith bought that farm so her daughter and other children can ride horses. I board 2 horses across the street from that Fox Ridge Farms at Princess Anne Farms. I'm doing what Mary Smith did when she bought it 47 years ago. I want my children to be able to ride. That the church and the proposed rezoning of the front parcels is going to put that in jeopardy. A lot of children get a lot of growth training to become better people, take care of the horses, being disciplined, having to ride, and that may be lost if this goes through. Okay, I got that. As you can see from the map, that the church and this out parcel rezoning isn't going to fit in our neighborhood. It's like putting a square peg in a round hole. So, for those reasons, we ask you to deny the proposal as written. Questions?
You figure it out? Here.
It's right there.
Oh, okay.
That's right.
Yeah, this is the parcel right here. Right across the street, right here is Princess Anne Farm where I keep my daughter's horses. I live in this subdivision right here. And as you can see, the previous speaker, this is a severe kind of S-curve. Coming out of my neighborhood already, you can't see because of all the trees. And he has similar issues.
Thank you.
All right, our next speaker is Craig McManus.
Hello.
Good afternoon. My name is Craig McManus, and I'd just like to thank you all members of the Planning Commission. And as I was working on my speech, I noted that the word planning has a synonym of forethought. And forethought is defined as careful consideration of what will be necessary or what may happen in the future. I'm here to ask that the rezoning of Grace Bible Church for the approximately 6 acres of frontage property be denied. Allowing the B2 zoning of this property has the potential to create a domino effect along this portion of London Bridge Road. There are 10 parcels with frontage on the London Bridge Road area in a 3/4 mile stretch between Strawbridge Road and the Prince George Estates. These neighboring properties total over 20 acres that could be developed into B2 zoned real estate if they want. And I believe that the property owners would have to heavily consider the appreciation in value from the current average land assessment of $47,000 per acre to the $250,000 to $300,000 per acre that the Fox Ridge Farm is being currently marketed at. But what effect would this growth of commercial property have on the surrounding neighborhoods? The staff report quotes the comprehensive plan, which uses phrases like maintaining great neighborhoods, protecting open spaces, words like stability, culture, historical, and it speaks of a transportation system that provides connectivity and mobility. The neighborhoods surrounding the Fox Ridge Farm are well established with a great sense of community and pride in their surrounding area. They are supportive of the nearby commercial districts along the General Booth and Red Mill corridors that have more than enough resources providing their shopping, dining, and entertainment needs. They embrace the cultural history of the agricultural lands surrounding them with open fields and pastures. London Bridge Road was designed as a connector between General Booth Boulevard and Dam Neck Road, allowing traffic to move freely from one major destination to another. What I see may happen in the future is more commercial creep taking over a primarily residential area, as it seems to be doing across our city. Allowing the development of B2 level businesses along this corridor goes against that comprehensive plan, as it will reduce the stability of the area, eliminate more of the open space and the surrounding neighborhoods, and put additional traffic on the roads surfacing this community. It is for these reasons that I ask you to deny the application to rezone the out parcels from AG2 to B2. I thank you again for your time and your forethought.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Walter George. And as you come to the podium, if you could state your name for the record, please.
My name's Walter George. I live in the White Pines subdivision. The first cul-de-sac right there. My house backs up to London Bridge Road. We're backed up like pretty much in the corner where they're talking about putting the restaurants at, and I'm guessing they're going to put a exit leaving the property. When we leave our property, trying to turn left when you're coming out of Country Manor, it's pretty busy road. There's a lot of people driving pretty fast down that road and getting across the street. It's already hard enough. We have kids, that play in the cul-de-sac where we live at. It's right there. Yeah, the second, not the one right at the middle one, up, yeah, right there. That's where we live at. My back door of my house is 50 feet from the from the inside lane headed east. Getting out of the neighborhood is tough. So they did Nemo Parkway, it's become a little cut through. And now it's gonna be more traffic, coming in. When they leave the church area or whatever's gonna be there, they're gonna be, turning around in our neighborhood. Our kids play out there on their bikes. That's my biggest concern. And, what's it gonna do to my property value if they rezone it? We tried to sell the house before, and, people come look at the house and they see, the traffic. That's one of the reasons we couldn't sell the house, because when they walk in the backyard, you hear the cars go by. And if they're gonna have more cars going by, what's it gonna do to my property value? And with rezoning the property. And that's pretty much all I got to say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate you coming down.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Gina Miller. Good afternoon. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, I'm Gina Miller, and I live in the Lake Placid subdivision up near Dam Neck Road. Whenever I heard about the plans, it seemed that there was lots of questions about volume down our corridor for, with what the rezoning would cause. Volume in traffic, volume in water from flooding, volume in trash, volume in noise, volume in light. Seemed to be that there was a lot of volume of a lot of stuff that didn't really fit the neighborhood that is currently there. The volume of the immediate traffic in and out of the proposed area at any targeted times is a huge concern of all the neighbors. Dam Neck Road and London Bridge Road, that light already backs up several times a day for 2 or 3 cycles. So if we add another 4,000 cars to that area, that light could back up more. That's the main artery in and out of Oceana, so I can imagine that more military will want to leave work and come through that light. That will change the whole light cycle leaving Oceana Base. As a matter of fact, if you leave Oceana now, 3 or 4 cars can get through that light to the other side of Dam Neck, but if more military come from that side and then across, the entire light cycle timing will need to change, which will further back up Dam Neck Road and London Bridge towards the east. There's a question of the drive-through restaurants and whether or not there would be 1 or 2 drive-through lanes. Many restaurants now have adapted 2 drive-through lanes to put more cars through the parking lot faster. So I question whether the volume turning into those areas would back up and cause hindrance to C to make the left back out later, and how many cars will be in a parking lot at a time. Also, the peak times are breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner also are peak times for our buses. So the schools that are fed off of that corridor will be affected. Breakfast time, of course, is when kindergarteners leave out. Breakfast time is whenever the schools enter. Lunchtime is kindergarteners. Afternoon is whenever the children are getting home. That area happens to be fed by many schools. The other question is activities at the church itself. 300 cars in and 300 cars out at any given time for their activities, which do not include, we have not yet considered Christmas and funerals and weddings that could hinder other times other than traditional Fridays and Sundays. London Bridge Corridor, the curve is very difficult to see, and I'm asking that you not make it more difficult for our kids and our community and the animals in the community by adding high-traffic businesses with drive-throughs. I respectfully ask that you deny B2 zoning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Blair Hollowell.
I'm her husband. She denies. She actually got called into emergency surgery, so she's not going to make it.
Okay, thank you. Oh, then I guess Todd, you're next. I just wanted you to get a little more exercise there. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Todd Hollowell. I got a couple photos that my wife did prepare that she was not around for you guys. So there's one piece for y'all. Back in college, I always talked about in my public speaking class being nervous, or would you rather get eaten by a shark or do public speaking? I think I figured which one I'd like to do now. But I definitely want to thank you guys.
You're saying?
Yeah, I appreciate you, the time allowing me to talk. My family and I own the Log Cabin Farm, which is actually located at 2274 London Bridge Road. We've owned the farm for just over a year and a half. We've been a fixture, and the farm has been a fixture in the community for about 25 years. Actually, if you look at where London is, right there, where that parcel right across at 6.1 acres. Our farm has the largest, it's 480 feet street frontage on London Bridge Road, directly across from the proposed B2
There's a
zone.
pointer right there.
It doesn't work. All right, Jeff, come
Just in
on.
charge of the
All right.
pointer.
Mr.
Hold on.
Bordon.
Here you go.
Right, well, so next to the
Does that work?
O2, that's our spot.
Right here?
No.
Other side, the larger one. Yeah, so that's Log Cabin Farm, that's 6.1 acres, and like I said, 480 foot street frontage directly across from where the rezoning is looking at for B2. commercial rezoning property. Our dining room table right there sits 138 feet from London Bridge Road and less than 200 feet from where the main entrance that they're proposing to come in to this new proposed commercial property. My wife and I purchased this small 6-acre farm to bring agriculture into the community, but not see it disappear. We have been part of Strawbridge, Hunt Club, and Princess Anne Farm community since 2007 as small business people and as property owners. This farm and family community has been home to our family's horses, goats, donkeys, which you're all seeing pictures of right now, and other numerous animals for the last 10 years, as well as many other horses, as others have stated, right up the road, 3 doors up the road. And if the, excuse me. So my concern today is if these land parcels are rezoned to B2 commercial properties, there will be a strong possibility that they'll be marketed and sold to various fast food establishments with drive-through windows that base their business success on how few seconds it takes to deliver a customer their order. I know you've already heard some concerns from other neighbors about these. I'd like to focus my concern on the trash and pollution that will surround the B2 zoning in these areas. Where that trash, I understand the church will do the best that they can to try to sell it to the best people. But unfortunately, once the church sells those parcels, they have no control of what that owner does to it and what the patrons do to it. And if trash ends up in the street and blows across the street, and my horse, who's actually pregnant right now and due in next spring with the baby foal, eats what does that happen? What happens to my animals and my family? It's my hope that the seller could recognize the community's support and the need for Grace Bible Church in the community and could come to agreement that allows Grace Bible Church to continue its mission at the Strawbridge campus without having to rezone the B2 property. I respectfully ask that you deny the rezoning application and presented for the B2 development. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Terry Lavenstein. Thank you. If you could please state your name for the record.
My name is Terry Lavenstein, and I have laryngitis. I'm not sure whether that's a blessing or a curse today, but I'll do my best to
You
make
can
this
move
brief.
the microphone down a little.
Is that better? I'll try to whisper. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Again, my name is Terry Lavenstein. I have lived and raised my family at 2324 London Bridge Road for nearly 35 years. My small farm is located directly across the street from Fox Ridge Farm, the other side of London Bridge Road. I do not support the current application for B2 development on the property across the street for several reasons. One of my concerns with the applicant's request is the estimated increase of almost 4,000 vehicles per day projected on this segment of London Bridge Road. Please note, and some others have said, that I'm going to speak to fast food restaurants for a second. I'll bring it back up. That many of these fast food restaurants have double drive-throughs. So although they're proposing to limit it to 2 fast food restaurants, remember, fast food is fast food. They want to get people in and out fast on a road that was not designed to be this type of corridor. Double drive-throughs will be twice the traffic. This section of our neighborhood has a large blind curve, and I believe that the additional traffic will greatly increase the number of accidents. Over my almost 35 years of residency, I've watched London Bridge Road develop from a 2-lane country road into a 4-lane heavily traveled suburban corridor. During this time, there have been many accidents in my next-door neighbors and my front yards, causing damage, injuries, and death. Due to car accidents, for example, on most years, I've had to replace my mailbox on several occasions, and I've had to repair my front pasture fence, relocate my animals to a safe area due to people running through my fence into my yard. And not to forget The horrible sight on that one evening of the young lady in her mid-20s lying dead directly in front of my house, in my front yard, just past that dangerous blind curve. I'm strongly opposed to the B2 development the Grace Bible Church is planning because of this traffic increase and the increase of accidents on London Bridge Road in front of my house and where my children drive and many others of the neighbors. Just imagine drivers exiting fast food restaurants, many which now operate double drive-through windows, distracted with their food, their drinks, their receipts, their change from ordering, and their condiments, onto a 45-mile-per-hour connector corridor. I've learned that many people who eat and drive increase the odds of an accident by 80%. And it's actually worse than texting while driving, which shows a 60% increase in the odds of accidents. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration states that eating and driving is more dangerous than texting and driving. I have so many unanswered questions related to this entire development. Will there be police officers or traffic monitors to help the church enter and exit the property on a regular basis? Will one of these ingress and egress areas, entrances or exits be directly in front of my property, which is in front of parcel E, in case anyone's interested? I want y'all to know. Has anyone considered the established trees that are there? The ones in the center of the property, along with the ones near the wetlands that will be destroyed in this proposed development. Thinking ahead, my question is, if this is approved, what's next? Please consider that I have raised, in closing, please consider that I've raised my daughters, their ponies, rescued llamas, cats, dogs, and more on my little slice of heaven. For this and so many reasons mentioned today, I respectfully request for you to all deny Grace Bible Church's rezoning application. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sally Walters. Good afternoon. If you could please state your name for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Sally Walters, and thank you for hearing me today. I'm an owner resident in the Strawbridge neighborhood. We haven't heard from anybody else from Strawbridge. I'm representing Strawbridge. I've lived there for 23 years. I'm the mother of two. My kids attended Strawbridge Elementary, PA Middle, and Kellam High. My son was in a bus accident on the PA Middle School bus heading home from school one day. It was a collision with a bus and a cement truck. And I got a call at work in Norfolk telling me about it. The drive to the crash site, let me tell you, was absolutely horrific. The things going through my mind. And I wouldn't wish that on anyone. Kids were hurt, one pretty badly. My son was one of the many kids that had to go to the emergency room and get checked out. Most parents, as with me, were able to bring their children home that night. There was one little girl that sustained incredible injuries and was in the hospital for many days. I am grateful there were no fatalities. So my focus appropriately is on the school bus. This is traveling on London Bridge Road corridor. Together with this B2 zoning, I'm opposed to this application going forward. It's a residential community that we live in. As such, there are scores of buses traveling on London Bridge with our children for 9.5 months of the 12-month year, 4 times a day. When the volume in these restaurants are very high. You've got to remember that you have not only the morning runs and the kindergarten runs, but you have the afternoon runs, and you've got the activity buses. So that's a lot of traffic. We seem to be a little unique in that we have a number of schools that are servicing this corridor. There is one elementary school, Strawbridge, 3 middle schools, 3 high schools, And there are academies as well. There are 8 high schools and 3 middle schools with buses going on this corridor. And this is all based on what I drew from the Virginia Beach City Public School website. From information that I received from people at the schools, because I did call around to the schools, I did some number crunches, and I came up with a figure that I think is conservative of 150 times a school bus would pass along this corridor. You see, the schools start picking up at 5:30, at least the high schools and the academies. And then at 8:30, 7 to 8:30 are the elementary schools, 8 to 9 are the middle schools and special needs. There's a 9:30 bus for speech. The kindergartens start having their bus activities from 10:10 to 12:30.
Ms. Walters, I'm sorry to interrupt you, darling, but you've run out of time.
Can I summarize, please?
Real quick, please. There are lots of people waiting to speak.
Okay. 150 buses. Buses cannot dodge cars. They can't stop on a dime. Drivers cut them off all the time. I saw what happened firsthand, and I just don't think it's worth it to jeopardize our kids, our precious cargo, the members that make our families, and the kids that are going to be our future. I respectfully request that you deny the application as it's been submitted. Thank you
very much.
Our next speaker is Robert Goodman.
My name is Robert Goodman. I live at 2432 London Bridge Road. Madam Chairwoman, members of the Planning Commission, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
As I said, my name is Robert Goodman. I live at 2432 London Bridge Road in what is the original Princess Anne community. I have been a resident there for over 23 years. Today you have heard from the representatives of the individual communities that surround the applicant's site, as well as some of the citizens that live in those communities. They have voiced their concerns for the impact on our communities if this application as submitted is approved. Specific concerns included the lack of a comprehensive study to evaluate the impact of the potentially significant increase in traffic, 3,700 average daily trips, in the area of London Bridge Road adjacent to the site based on the plan and projected use of the site by the church, as well as that of the use by the potential businesses on the B2 properties. The flow of traffic along this stretch of road could show a significant increase of U-turns being made in both directions at the existing median openings. They also expressed concern about the increased traffic in regards to the safety of the school children of all ages that travel by bus at various times throughout the day, and they expressed concerns about the potential traffic traveling through our neighborhoods to avoid congestion on the main road. We all know people take shortcuts. There were also serious concerns that allowing the rezoning of parts of the site to B2 is deviating from the intent of the comprehensive plan that designated the area as suburban. It is felt that the B2 commercial rezoning would not enhance the existing neighborhoods through compatibility, quality, or attractiveness, and would negatively impact the mobility of the citizens that live in these neighborhoods. We are strongly requesting the Planning Commission recommend that the City Council disapprove the application as submitted by Grace Bible Church. Thank you for your time and consideration. It's been an honor being able to address our Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you for coming down.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. That was our last speaker. Mr. Burdon, if you would.
Thank everyone for coming down. I may call on Matt Breitenberg to assist in a couple of points that he may want to speak on in rebuttal. It's nice to see Tom Holden. Hadn't seen him in quite some time. Look forward to possibly talking to him when we are done today, because it is our absolute belief, along with your professional staff, that this does fit, given the parameters that we are dealing with. Mr. Ingram, we couldn't agree with Mr. Ingram more. Mr. Ingram said he'd like to see this property developed residentially. We would too, and we wouldn't be here if that were possible. But that's not possible because of an action the city took to maintain NAS Oceana in our community, or that was the belief, and I think that's true. The other gentleman who spoke after him from, I believe it was Mayberry, talked about the city's desire to maintain Oceana, and this is absolutely, completely consistent with that. That's what we are trying to do. We are not trying to fight City Hall. We're not trying to file, a lawsuit say, let us build houses here, even though you say you can't, because the Navy doesn't want them here. We have laid it out, and you all clearly understand it, that the church use is the absolute best possible use for this piece of property, and the limited commercial use is just that, limited, and limited to uses that do in fact fit with what we are walking into. I would also point out that there is existing B2 zone property on London Bridge Road to the west of the subject site. Two fairly substantial ones, undeveloped. One was cut off when the road realigned, and you can pull the map. Our map up here isn't big enough. You can see it on the one down here. The gentleman who spoke last month, who was a leader at Beacon Baptist Church, last month they were okay, just wanted B1 or B1A. Now they don't want anything in here, and we won't get into the fact that they're trying to have their property rezoned commercially and tried to buy this piece of property. But, he suggested there are 10 parcels on London Bridge Road that could be rezoned B2. That is blatantly untrue, okay? There may be 10 undeveloped parcels on London Bridge Road, but not that can be zoned B2 because they either have residential use restrictions on them that it can't be rezoned to anything other than residential, or they have Navy restrictions on them that restrict them to industrial use only. So there are two B2 properties, though, that are within 0.2 of a mile east of this piece of property, that Mrs. Smith's 20-plus acre farm. So I don't, again, I can somebody look at a map and they say, oh, it's not zoned B2, it could be zoned B2, it's not developed well. There's a lot of reasons why it can't be rezoned B2 that I can appreciate that he doesn't have an understanding of those things. But anyway, some statements were made again that were inaccurate by Mr. Ingram. The Grace Bible does not have any services and will not have any services at this church on any day other than Sunday. They don't have Friday services. They don't have Saturday services. They don't have services at peak rush hour traffic Monday through Friday morning or evening. On Sunday, they will have people out, as most of the larger churches in our community we're blessed to have. They'll be out there directing traffic when people leave, but that is certainly far, far from the peak traffic hours on this road. And this road is, as you heard from Rick Lohman this morning, one of the safest roads in the city, and it is well below capacity. Some of the numbers that were thrown out there, I couldn't even follow them all, but this is not going to be a 26 acre or 20.6 acre shopping center, and nor is it going to be a 20.6, if this is approved, a 20.6 acre industrial park with a lot of large vehicles with no restrictions on hours of operation, because businesses, that are industrial, they'll do things through the night, and those are the only uses on this property. We certainly wish that this property could be developed residentially like those that surround it, but the best thing for it to be is not an industrial park or a 20.6 acre shopping center. Some might think it's a great idea that it be somehow rather condemned to being nothing but a horse farm. The Taylor Sisters horse farm, they still have part of it. That's the largest in this area, and as you all well know, the vast majority of that is now industrial parks. And there's a lot of industrial land yet to be developed to the west of this property on London Bridge Road. That is all that it can be developed for. The church wants nothing more than the entrances to be safe. That's why what we've proposed, full turn lanes for the entrances. Full turn lanes, nothing short of a full turn lane. We put another third lane on there, but that's not as safe as doing the full turn lanes. And a loop road inside. The individual businesses have no direct access to London Bridge Road. Only the main two entrances, where the second one will be, which will have a full turn lane, and then we'll have internal circulation, not a bunch of curb cuts along the road. Safe as it can possibly be, and this is already a very safe road. And it's a safe road that will continue to be safe because of the limited nature of what's going to happen, because it's all going to basically be industrial from this point forward, that the properties that are not already zoned. And this is the one, again, that is we realize we're in the middle of residential, but because Mrs. Smith didn't sell out to the subdivision people, she's the one who now is trying to fit that thread through the eye of the needle. And this is, we believe, absolutely, last month it was try to restrict it more. So we've done just that. I didn't hear anybody come up here today and say anything wrong other than they don't want to see a drive-through, wrong with all of the list of things that we're not going to do on this piece of property. Didn't hear that. We heard drive-through, expect to hear drive-through, but now no B2. Well, there's already B2 out here, and I-1 would bring a bigger, larger crowd of people who weren't happy. And this will not impact their property values. It will be absolutely done safely. And the church would be, I think, the best possible neighbor, other than, again, somebody wants to condemn the property, if somebody wants to come in and pay what the property is worth for a horse farm, but that's not going to happen. So the church will make sure that the development, it can't change, as one of the gentlemen said, this is proffered. Okay, what goes in there can't change without coming back through this entire process. Maintenance, the church is, again, care more than anybody else about how the properties are maintained. The church can have, and probably will have, restrictions of their own on the properties to make sure that they are well maintained, because as I've said, it's their front door. These businesses are not at the entrance to anybody else's neighborhood. The wetlands on the west side are being preserved. The trees in that area preserved. We can't go in there and take those down, or attempting to go in and take those down. A wonderful area of treed buffer on the property, on the west side of the property. We've had a landscape buffer on the that's on the west side. On the east side, that's much larger than is required. We've buffered the parking lot. There's been a drainage study done, preliminary drainage study. We wouldn't be here without it. We'll have large BMPs on the property. They're shown on the plan. We will not be putting water on anybody else's property. The church will have security cameras around the church when they're not there, so that they will monitor what goes on the site. Haven't had problems at their other campuses, and certainly are going to be good neighbors. There'll be someone that anyone in the surrounding community can contact if there's a problem, if there are people on the property that shouldn't be on the property at times when they ought not be there. The church is certainly concerned, and it's a nice neighborhood, nice area. Again, my family owns a very large farm on London Bridge Road and has from before any of these residential neighborhoods were ever developed. So I don't think there's a better use that this property could be put to. It's, and the thought that they're going to be, these large fast food restaurants with double drive-throughs it's not real. It's not realistic. It's not going to happen. We're talking about small businesses, soft service businesses, because they're going to be where they are on General Booth Boulevard, and that's the major and down at Upton and Nemo. That's the major commercial hub in this part of town. I probably forgot a couple other things I was going to mention, but I'm sure that Matt can fill me in if what I forgot, or you all can ask me questions. If there were questions that came up in what you heard that I haven't addressed, I'm happy to do so.
think there, Eddie, I think there was one gentleman was concerned, and maybe I missed it when you said it was lighting.
Oh, yes, thank you. Our zoning ordinance is very clear, and we have also proffered that lighting on the site must be screened and cannot spill over onto anybody else's adjacent property. And that's our, and then we have some old, now, Red Mill is actually an excellent, or actually, excuse me, Strawbridge is an excellent shopping center in that their lighting is very low level, and this would have to be similar to that, and it's not going to be a bright situation. And with the restricted hours that were asked for by the community, by the commission, there's nothing's going to be going on the site after 11 p.m. But that is an ordinance requirement, and we've proffered it as well. And city has complete control over the lighting on the site to make sure it complies with the ordinance. It's true that there are some older shopping centers in the city where that built before those restrictions came into play that may have a higher level of lighting, but we're not going to have that, and the church itself doesn't have much lighting at all because they're not there at night for the most part.
All right, any questions? No?
Remember, we've got the two changes to the proffers that we will make between here and city council that I went over before. Number one, with the access, and number two, we'll make it very clear that any drive-through, should one be placed on the property, will be behind the building.
Okay. Jeff?
I have a question. I think you mentioned that you have no intentions of putting McDonald's or Burger King or Wendy's or anything like that on
Correct.
it.
And we know that can't happen if we wanted to.
Well, my question is, and I've never seen this happen, and just for curiosity's sake, proffer two, can you call out a business by name? You can't.
I knew the answer to that.
I didn't know.
Yeah, the folks in the commercial real estate business can tell you that if we were putting a shopping center on this piece of property, you might have some interest, but even then, they're not going to they're already out there. We've already got the power center at Red Mill Commons and Strawbridge combined, and with the Hickman property coming online soon, and what Cheryl McCluskey's got at General Booth and Dam Neck, which already has a tremendous amount of retail, and all the big players are already there. And that's not what we're trying to get there. We wouldn't succeed if we were, but we're talking about you may have three different retail spaces in a small building on one of the sites. One of them, and it'd be a great use, in my opinion, would be a Krispy Kreme, like we've got over on Independence Boulevard, on Northampton Boulevard. Don't even know it's there. It's in a little strip shop, something like that. Very high quality one, I might add. But that's the type of thing that's likely to has a shot at happening here. But what folks are worried about aren't going to go here. I know it's you're self-serving, but it's true. If you talk to anybody in the commercial real estate business, they're going to tell you that's not what you're going to get it's going to be a limited, soft retail, service-type uses. Again, and that's why we're at B2 versus B1A, is we know there's interest from some people for indoor recreation, and more than one type of indoor recreation, which is a perfect fit, because you can't ride horses in the wintertime. And that's
well, be careful.
Mr. Pradhan, I'm just trying to figure out how you got to this, on proffer number 3, at the end, you have agreed not to permit eating and drinking establishments with drive-through windows on parcel E. Why not the other parcels?
Because parcel E.
Why not the other parcels? That's the question.
I'm going to tell you why.
And it don't work.
It doesn't work. You don't have it up there.
Tell me where
you broke it.
Here, we got one, Eddie.
But can you put the plan up there, please? Because we put it on parcel E along with other restrictions, because parcel E is actually adjacent to residences. Even though we're putting up a large buffer between this property and the residences, I'm not sure what that all is. That's the reason why we restricted parcel E, so they wouldn't have a drive-through behind the building, which even by being behind the building is going to be next to somebody's house. Whereas on the other parcels, it's just, we didn't restrict that because we were concerned about traffic. I understand there's concern about traffic, but the traffic here is not going to in any way be excessive, and it's going to be far better type of traffic because it's going to be more, most of the traffic is the church traffic on Sunday, but it's controlled versus if you have an industrial use, you've got traffic coming all hours a day, large trucks, larger, having to maneuver out there with the cars. So the reason is we didn't want to have, we thought it best not to have somebody's drive-through back in this part because there are homes over here. And
I understand
that's not
that.
the case with the other three. The only one back there is the church, and that's it in a nutshell.
It's not a really thorough answer, though, because.
Not thorough? Not logical either?
Maybe logical about why you selected parcel E, but as to why you won't exclude.
Because we're trying to be a good neighbor and trying to do what's best for the people who surround us.
That's not his
I hear you.
question. That's not the.
Anybody else? Jack, you have a question? No? Great, thank you. Any other questions? Then I guess we will close this and open it up amongst the commissioners. Yes, sir.
Can I ask Mr. Lohman a question?
Yes, that's a great idea.
Rick, are you pretty set on this 3,700 car increase because of this commercial development?
That's the general, I mean, we have general rates that we use for different zoning districts, and it takes averages of the different uses. It doesn't assume the highest use on every single inch of property, but it doesn't assume that it's all going to be the lowest. So it's an industry average that.
Isn't it highly likely that the businesses that'll end up here will be small in nature, and most of the traffic will be drive-by traffic that actually was going by anyway and stopped in for some odd reason?
I think a lot of it
Good
would be,
portion.
I believe that a lot of it would be drive-by type traffic. These sites aren't very big, so you're not going to get destination, I mean, they're not shopping centers where people are going to be coming from all over the place to get to there. A lot of it would be drive-through. I'm not in marketing, but I would think a lot of it's going to be drive or pass by.
I wouldn't think that this quality of commercial would bring a lot of destination traffic, where people would drive to get there for a specific thing. I would think at least half of them would be just for, drive-by people.
With fast food, I mean, I hate to keep saying, because everybody's using the word drive-through with fast food, but with those types of businesses, a lot of those are passed by because you don't go out of your way to go to one of these because you're going to pass by one on your way home or wherever you're going, as it is.
So if that be the case, we wouldn't have the 4,000, it's not highly likely that we'd have 4,000 cars more per day.
The 3,700 cars per day doesn't account for pass-by.
Right, okay. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Yes, Ron?
We heard about, at least I heard about 6 major categories people were concerned about, 2 of which were traffic and safety. Do you see any reason why this site can't be designed to be safe and comply and flow in with the traffic that's there now? Do you see any problem? Do you believe there'll be any kind of problem creating a plan that is safe and that also blends with the traffic?
I don't. I mean, we do have the curve issue, which is something that we can overcome by keeping landscaping out of that first 30 feet. We can make that work. I mean, they've got smart engineers that can make that work. So we can make the entrances safe. The turn lanes are going to make entry into the site very safe. There's always issues with people, driver error, trying to get across 2 lanes and they cross 2 more lanes at the unsignalized intersection. But as one of the other speakers spoke, a signal is going to bring other problems. Signals bring crashes to begin with, so that wouldn't be our first, that wouldn't be our first idea, is put a signal there.
Okay, thank you.
But the turn lanes will mitigate the effects of, cars stopping on London Bridge Road to turn in. They'll exit the road very smoothly if we do them per Public Works standards.
Thank you.
Is that it?
I do want to, so when you just said the word, if we do them per Public Works standard, I mean, that's correct, right, Eddie? That's what you're planning on doing? Okay. Sir, sorry. But that's what we are doing,
Okay.
right?
Anything else?
Yes, Karen?
So I think that there's two separate issues here that the community is concerned about. One is that, well, not that they're concerned about. One, I didn't hear any opposition to the church itself. So I think we have two separate issues. They are opposed to the rezoning. So I think we need to take out of our discussion any kind of animosity or opposition to the church on that property. And I don't think Mr. Ingram was saying that he thought it should stay residential. He said, I want it to stay in the zoning it is with the residential community surrounding it. So I don't believe he was stating that it should go to residential, because I know that they understand their ACUs pretty clearly. What I heard the residents saying was that they were concerned about, and I think it was Gina who said this, I may have names wrong, I tried to write them all down, was volume of a variety of kinds. So it wasn't simply volume of traffic, it was volume of regular traffic, volume of school traffic, volume of parishioners, volume of potential for B2, even though Eddie says that's minimal, volume of U-turns, volume of loss of mobility. So there were a lot of things creating a magnitude of problems for the community that weren't just related to traffic. And while, Rick says that this will be a lot of drive-by, it'll also be a lot of drive-through if we have drive-through establishments on that. So my sense from the community was that these are two separate issues in their minds. I'm wondering if we can I know that I can ask that we vote on them separately, and that we consider the community's concerns about the rezoning, because they're not opposed to the church on the property, which is a conditional use permit, a separate element. They're concerned, they're in opposition to the rezoning, and to me, that's the focus of our discussion.
I don't know if you have that luxury of being able to
We do.
bifurcate them. Can you separate these,
Yeah.
even though it's proffered?
Mm-hmm.
It's a
The
proper
proffer is
plan.
separate from the conditional use permit. The only thing you get with a conditional use permit is the conditions for the religious use. Angie?
Yes.
No.
No, you can't.
Good answer.
Oh.
Good answer.
I was just giving you
The
credit.
the two applications are, they go together. One without the other is not going to happen. They're the same.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay.
that's off the table then. Mike?
I guess I'm torn on this application, as I have been since we heard it last time, and I still am, because I have to say, well, if you view this property in its environment of maybe a mile radius on Google Earth, and you see what's surrounding it, what you see is green, and what you see is houses, and what you see is horse farms and whatever. I agree that this property owner deserves to have some use that's reasonable but compatible with what's around it. And I think that's what the comprehensive plan calls for, personally. And the leeway given by the proffers and by the imposed restrictions even, it just doesn't go far enough. And there are 60-plus uses under B2, 60-plus different uses you can make a property either by right or by conditional use. And wow, I mean, certainly there's other uses that could be found besides eating and drinking establishments with drive-through windows, and why that can't be excluded, I don't know. That's not my sole issue, believe me. I just think it could be crafted better to be more restrictive in terms of what could go there before I really want to support it.
Yes, Ron?
And I think that, that I didn't hear where the church was objectionable either. I didn't think the uses for the church was objectionable. But on the other hand, what I did hear, as I mentioned, is traffic and safety, and I heard somebody was concerned about losing views in the horse farm, which is not really you need to own the property to have that benefit, more or less. But it was fast food and drive-throughs, and that's what I kept hearing. And I keep, looking at the site, and the site looks to me to be a pretty open site, the way it's being proposed to be developed. And I think that the restrictions that have been placed on it probably puts it in a good position to move forward, in my opinion. I think that what else are you going to do with the property? You don't want it industrial. Can't use it residential. What else are you going to do? You don't want a big shopping center, I don't think. And these uses up on front, they're big parcels, so they're going to be pretty open uses, and the site itself is going to be more open than typical, and so I'm inclined to support it.
I got quite, like you said, are you required to do anything to it? Are we obligated to change zoning on this property?
No, you can deny it.
Yeah, but I understand the economic impact that she didn't sell her property when everybody else did, and so she didn't get to reap the financial benefits, but I think we can all say that about things in our lives. I wish I'd done a lot of things in the past that could have made me or saved me a lot of money that I didn't do, and I can't be expected to now say, hey, do me a favor, let me make my money off whatever situation it may be. So I'm struggling with that aspect of, one of my issues.
Jack?
It does appear that there's not really any opposition to the church, and in fact, I'm kind of highly encouraged by the growth of Grace Bible Church. But my concerns are that it does negatively affect the character of the residential area on London Bridge, and I think it is kind of in contrast to the recommendations of the comprehensive plan for for suburban area, for creating and maintaining great neighborhoods.
Well, I agree with Mr. Ripley. And aside from anybody else's thoughts about when someone's intention or missed opportunities or all of that, this is, so far as I can tell, as low-intensity use as you're going to get on this site. 2/3 of the site would be the church grounds, and it would be in use 1 day a week. So I don't know how it gets less intensive than that. I'm not one who views eating and drinking establishments, even ones with drive-throughs, because those can be some very attractive places. Like the ice cream parlor I take my daughter to when we come home to the beach. I don't view those as, as nefarious or bad in some way. Even then, they're restricted. I don't know that this will be a horse farm forever. I completely agree that a 21-acre industrial park would be, significantly more impactful. This is a highly developed part of the city, which you can see from that zoning map, with a whole lot of houses and a big commercial operation across the street. This is perhaps a different kind, but it's highly restricted. It's as low impact as you can get. I don't know how you make it any less impactful than that. So 1 day a week for 2/3 of the site, a host of restrictions on there. Mr. Inman, I understand your concern, but it's rare that you see a list where an applicant has struck as many uses from what they might be able to do. They've proffered so many restrictions on themselves in terms of uses that it strikes me as, just as restrictive as one can still make it. And it is opposition to the church. because these are indivisible. You just can't take a plan and pick out a part here and there. That's a whole application. They cannot make it work without those. I don't know what their finances look like, but that's how these things work. So if you vote against it, you're voting against the church. It's just that simple. It's an up or down vote. It's the only way to do it.
So
They're indivisible.
Yes.
I just want to clarify that in my remarks,
I'm sorry, please, thank you.
in my remarks, I may not have emphasized enough that I would be delighted to see Grace Bible Church be on that site, and I think that the community would be delighted to see Grace Bible Church on that site. But I think there's other ways they can be on that site that without having the impact, whether it's cutting it down to 2 commercial sites or whatever. Commercial is just really not fitting into that community. And I think it's not consistent with a comprehensive plan, in my opinion. I know there's obvious difference of opinion with the staff. That's the way I read it. And I read it very much the way Mr. Holden read it. He was quoting from it.
Anybody else?
I have one other comment.
Yes.
And then I'd like to make a motion. I wholeheartedly agree with Mike's comment about the comprehensive plan and Mr. Holden's comments and Jack's comments in relation to it. I don't think this is compatible with what that area already, the shape of that area at the present time. And I don't believe it's what the comprehensive plan calls for that area. I also think that we aren't a body that is making a decision on this. We're recommending a decision. And so between now and then, the church is claiming to want to be a good neighbor to this community and to work with this community. And the one thing that is most bothersome to the community, the church is holding strong on. And also making the promise to the community that they'd make a good decision about who would go in there. And frankly, the market will dictate that. If they can't sell those parcels in any other way than to a fast food establishment that would be glaringly inappropriate for that area, that will be what it is sold to so that they can make the money they need for those parcels. That's logical in my mind. So for this to be a good fit for the church and the community, it seems to me that there's time between now and city council. If we recommend, if when I make my motion, we recommend denial, then between now and then it's possible for them to really rethink this thing that really bothers the community, which is this commercial development on that property. The rezoning of those parcels to commercial is what bothers the community. And that needs to be something that the church takes into consideration to be a good neighbor. Now, having said that, I'd like to make a motion, because we have to deny the entire application as Mr. Bourdon has directed us to. I'd like to make a motion to recommend denial.
I'll second that.
Vote.
Second by Jan?
Second by Jan.
Isn't that an application? Okay.
Yes.
The vote is open. A vote of 7-3, the planning commission has denied the application of Grace Bible Church of Virginia Beach Incorporated.
Thank you all.
So what? Oh, I have to call the meeting. Thank you all so much for coming down. Sorry, I'm out of school. And is there any other business? If not, this meeting of the Planning Commission is adjourned.